And a very good morning, everyone, from the flight deck. Once again, welcome aboard with me, Captain Nabs, and another live stream here of my pilot's life career here on Twitch. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the stream. And we are going to be heading out once again in our JetBlue A320-200 aircraft, complete with the CFM56 engines. I'm assuming it's the 5Bs on this, but maybe it's the 5As. With the 320s, it can go either way. The 321s, it has to be the Bs. The 19s, it has to be the As. But the 320 kind of went both ways. You can have the bigger engines, you can have the smaller engines. Depends on what your airline likes. But yeah, regardless. Regardless of what kind of engines, CFM56 engines we have on this aircraft, we are going to take them up flying today. And I do have to say that, like, just talking about the 319 and the 321, it makes me excited for the eventual release later this fall, or maybe even this winter, of the 319 and the 321 expansion pack for this, because I have to say, I still think 321 is really the epitome of this aircraft. It really is the pinnacle of the 320 family. The 319's fun. It goes like crazy. You can actually get to 37 and 390 in that airplane. But the 321 is just, it's a beast. It's a machine. It's just got so much girth and inertia to it that you can't help but do a smooth landing in the 321. The 320 could be a bit finicky. The 319 is very, very touchy. It's a light airplane. It reacts very quickly to even a small gust of wind. The 321 is just a tank. It just keeps sailing down the center line, and I find the 321 is the easiest of the whole fleet to land, and for the departures as well. The 319s, and it's probably mostly because most of my experience is on the 320s and 321s. We have very few 319s in our fleet, that when you do fly 319, you give it a little bit of back pressure, the thing just leaps off the runway, much like the Seminole used to do way back in the day. Just absolutely leaps off the runway. So maybe it's just a lack of experience, but I just enjoy the 321. So I am so looking forward to flying the 321, the Fenix 321 with you guys, and it'll happen sometime soon. I'm sure it'll. I'm not sure. I think it will probably happen before we even finish this season flying for JetBlue. If not, we'll move it into next season for sure. But definitely be great to fly some of the different variants and show you a little bit of the difference between them. But today we're stuck with still the 320-200. So yeah, we're going to do our flight today. So for those of you that did not read the stream title or just want a quick reminder, today's flight is from San Juan in Puerto Rico back up to Tampa, Florida. So we're going to KTPA, Tampa International in Florida. It seems like a pretty small flight on this map here. It is actually quite a long flight. It's just under 1,100 miles, so it's actually about a 3 and a bit hour flight. Not quite as long as some of the flights we've done. It's not quite as long as the last flight we did, but nevertheless, it's going to be a decent flight, so we're going to have lots of time to talk about stuff. And then from Tampa, eventually, we're going to carry on with a couple of other legs. We're going to go back up towards New York, Tampa up to LaGuardia, then LaGuardia over to Denver and back. So that's a big turn, and then a New Orleans turn in there. New Orleans is a beautiful airport. And then eventually, we come back down to Tampa again. So it's not going to be the only time we visit Tampa this season. We are going to come back to Tampa again, but I do like that it's not all... this season's not all out and back. There's some variety in it. It's kind of going back and forth. It's going through different triangles. So that's kind of what I liked about it. It wasn't just back and forth between the same two airports the whole time, because that tends to get just boring after a while. And I hear departures actually taking off here. So if you're wondering, I do have the FSLTL traffic up today. I decided to turn it on because even at this point, I sort of booted up the sim. And I said, oh, you know, it looks boring. There's not much going on here. But that being said, of course, then it makes it noisy on the ramp when we've got other airplanes around, so we're going to have to probably hop back in the sim. If we see some VATSIM traffic, and especially a VATSIM controller online, we will definitely start getting rid of the FSLTL traffic. But here comes another JetBlue airplane our way. But until that happens, we'll keep some of this FSLTL traffic. It just makes it a little bit more interesting. It makes it seem like there's actually stuff happening here. Also, if it doesn't conform to the plans I'm making with my ATC, then then I may also remove it. But it just adds a little bit of life and depth to this airport, I definitely think. So nice to see some other airplanes taxiing around. Even if they're just AI, they're just computers, at least it's something for now, and we'll hope for some better service on the VATSIM network soon. Alright, but in the meantime, guys, let's hop in the flight deck. Let's get this flight started here because we got a, you know, not a short flight, not a long flight, but enough going on today. So before I do anything else, I'm just going to have a quick look at this flight plan because several times in the past little while, some of you guys are probably familiar with, I have loaded up these flight plans and then my extra fuel has not added up to what I thought it was. I kept on trying to put down 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever, and it kept on defaulting back to kilos. So I put in 10 kilos of extra fuel instead of 10 minutes of extra fuel, which was not what I wanted. 10 minutes of extra fuel is seldom enough to make ends meet in this world. So today we've got 10 minutes of extra fuel, 15 minutes of extra fuel. I'll have a quick look at our flight plan here. ATC fuel for Tampa arrivals, weather fuel for en route CBs, and just to show you guys again what I was looking at. So I did the flight plan this morning, and the original route it gave me was a very direct route, which pretty close to this gray line here, very direct route. However, when I did one quick thing here, all of a sudden my plans changed. So there is some weather over the Bahamas here, and my route was taking me right through them. So I said, can we change the route? Can I pick a different route? And this is actually a pre-planned ATC route. This was used by a real-world flight at some point. So not the most direct route, adds about 2 to 3% to our flight, but at the same time avoids these storms. And that's what your dispatchers will try to be doing for you most of the time, is they'll look at these storms and they'll say, hey, can we get you around them without spending a whole lot of extra fuel? And the sooner you start this diversion, the less fuel you use. If you go almost right up to them and then suddenly make a 9-degree right or 9-degree left turn and go around it that way, you're going to use a lot more fuel than if you just sort of just start gradually making a correction early. So that's the whole kind of idea behind it. Dispatchers would look at all sorts of things. This is a very basic weather radar view. There's other things that dispatchers would look at, including what are the cloud heights over here? Are they in the 20s? Are they in the 30s? Are they in the 40s? You know, is it going to be, are you going to be able to go over them, or do you have to go around them? Is there any turbulence associated with it as well? So we can't necessarily see that on here, but if you pull up the Navigraph weather, you can also have a look at that. So I'm not going to spend too much time getting ready for that, but I just want to kind of show you guys why we picked up a slightly, not the first offered route, but a slightly southerly route just to get around that weather. We do have the correct amount of fuel in there, and the reason why I want to show you that as well is because I also have a new toy. And I realize that I'm not on screen here, so I'm just going to put myself on the screen here really quickly. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the stream. So I have a new toy that I started playing with last week, and some of you may have seen this, some of you may not. But if you fly the Fenix and you fly GSX, this is a very, very useful tool. And so it is called Fenix2GSX. Fenix2GSX. This is a freeware tool, just developed by. I don't remember honestly who developed it. I was looking at it last night, reading the documentation, because last night there was a new update issued. It's a very simple tool. It actually doesn't even have to have this window open. This is kind of the options window. You can have this open. The reason I like to have it open is because it does have the log messages here at the bottom. But what it does normally is just sits in your tray. So you fire this up when you start up your sim, and then forget it. Fire it up and forget it. But what it will do is it will allow you to automate some or all of the GSX processes from Fenix. So you don't have to call the fuel truck and ask them to refuel the airplane and then go into the tablet and load that and everything. All these options here basically allow everything to start happening automatically. There are some chances for you to prompt stuff and to add stuff, but basically you almost will never need to look at the GSX window again, with one exception, and that is when you're picking the direction that you want the pushback to go. Is the only time you'll actually need to have the GSX window open. Otherwise, this will completely automate all of your interactions with GSX if you're flying the Fenix. So this is specifically designed for the Fenix, but it automates all this stuff, links the fuel in your airplane, the fuel request in your airplane to GSX and the passenger load and all that other stuff. So really fun little tool. Really well thought out. It's got little green lights here at the bottom. These turn red if something's not connected. So if it's not connected to MSFS, if it doesn't connect to the SimConnect Fenix or the session itself, it'll give you, red things to kind of give you some diagnosis. But otherwise, it does everything automatically. Very useful little tool, and it even has a little log down here at the bottom. So the way it triggers to start, and I'm just going to move it out of the way so I can start this thing, but the way it triggers is it waits for you to load your flight plan into the tablet. As soon as you've loaded a flight plan into the tablet, this system will creep to life. And maybe I'll put this up over here so you guys can just watch this here. So we'll go into the Fenix tablet here. Now it's not going to work because, of course, if I click on the sim, it's going to take focus away from that window. But basically, as soon as I tap this button here, tap to import from SimBrief, plan has an off blocks time in 1 hour and 2 minutes. We adjust the STD below. Did I do something wrong with that flight plan? Because I swear when I was trying to do it, I swear I did 10:20, but maybe I did 11:20. Is there an ETD on here? No, that should be 20 minutes from now, so I'm not sure why, unless it's got the wrong time. So the menu does pop up on its own, but what you'll see is that this will automatically do everything you need to do. So it has scheduled time departure 14:20. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's exactly what we need. I'll check the clock on my computer here, but that should be coming up very soon. But as soon as we've done this, now it has already requested the fuel truck, and it's also going to request the catering truck automatically. And I didn't even do anything. So you can see the windows popped up here on its own. I can minimize this or get this out of the way. It'll work in the background. It'll communicate. Fenix2GSX will communicate in the background. So see, as soon as I did this, state change, preparation, departure, waiting for refueling and boarding, sending preliminary load sheet, calling refuel service, calling catering, no operator selection needed, fuel service active. So you can see it's doing all this stuff automatically. Super neat, and I like that. I really like that. Here comes the catering truck, because that's the way it works in the real world. The pilots do not normally call for catering. They do not normally call for fuel. This stuff is all done automatically, sent automatically based on departure time. The pilots may have to call if something's missing. If the catering truck doesn't show up in time, they may call to find out about it. But under normal circumstances, we don't call for catering. We don't call for fuel. All that stuff is kind of done for us. So what a neat little utility. It's really quite effective. There's a couple of best steps to the installation. If you're going to use it, read the documentation. For crying out loud, read the documentation. But the documentation is good. It explains all the steps you need to get set up and get everything done. All right, anywho, let's get this show on the road. Just keep sipping my coffee here. So we hopped in the flight deck. Let's just do a couple things first of all. So the batteries need to go on. Ground power was already established. And we need to get the IRSs on. Alright, and what we'll also do as well is let's start setting up.
Roger.
So today we have Lars. Lars is our FO from the Netherlands. He's going to be our FO for today. I'm just going to adjust my track IR slightly because I feel like it's a little bit too... Alright. Nope, still not working right. I need it lower. Sorry, give me a second, guys. I thought I had this nicely adjusted because I need to definitely be able to look at the MCDU. Alright, so, first things first, aircraft status, just check our database, swap the databases to clear everything out, and then we can put in the initial setup here. So TJSJ-KTPA. Alright, and our flight number today is JetBlue 1656, I believe it is. 1652. Alright, so JBU1652. And then we can make sure our IRS, that's just him testing the systems. Make sure our IRSs are properly knitted here. So we can pull that up in the flight plan because the first fix on the flight plan will be TJSJ. So if you go to the nav log, you can see the lot log here. For TJSJ is 1826.4 north. And I might have to zoom in quite a bit for you to actually be able to read that, but 1826.4 north is what it says. By 6600.1 west, 66.00.1 west. So we can align on that reference point. We could also use a GPS. Our company has a bit of a throwback of using the actual airport reference point because we only not too long ago finally got all the fleet equipped with GPSs. Some of the 320s were quite old, didn't have GPSs when they were built, and it took a while for them to actually get around to putting them all in there. Alright, so that's initializing. And while that's initializing, there we go. We got 5 minutes to initialize that. The other things we can do, of course, is we can get the crew oxygen supply on, make sure the nav lights are on, parking brake is on, and check our fluid levels as well. So we do have sufficient oxygen for the flight. We do have sufficient engine oil for the flight. We do have sufficient hydraulic fluid for the flight. Alright, fueling is happening. And the nice thing is it does link GSX and the fueling system together. So the progressive fuel system that's used in the Fenix, it does get linked to GSX. GSX will stay here until the Fenix is filled up. So it really feels like we're actually loading some fuel. The other thing is that we can also start boarding passengers early or automatically. So there's two ways to board. Automatically start boarding when refueling and catering are finished, which is done. We can also use the intercom button. So there's a neat little feature here within the Fenix to GSX where if we press the intercom button, it basically will advance to another stage of loading. So even while catering and fueling are still here, we can request boarding by just moving the intercom button up to the intercom's position, and that will trigger it, because that's something you never actually have to use really outside of you know, even communicating with VATSIM like you normally would have a push to talk installed on your mouse, so, or on your yoke. So I'm gonna look up and see if there's an ATIS. So I don't know, and I'm curious if there is an ATIS for San Juan. Oh, there is. It does work. Okay, yeah, it is part of the US ATIS system, so I have the app on my phone. So let's see what the actual current ATIS in San Juan is right now. So Lima 07011, 10 miles, fuel 2,000, scattered 3,000, scattered 8,000, 32 degrees. Oh, it's a nice day. It's going to be 27 here today, so it's going to be nice here. 29084, ILS visual approaches to 10 in use, departing 8. So departing runway 8. NOTAMS, Sierra intersection closed, Sierra 3 and Sierra 4 intersections closed. Okay, so there's a bunch of NOTAMS here. So why don't we pull that up while we're waiting for this IRS to align here before we can do any more steps. Let's pull this up here. And you know what I didn't do before I even started this flight was I didn't load, so I have my previous flight in here. Oh, right there, yeah. See, I haven't done a whole lot of flying last week. And one of the reasons why we didn't have a stream last week is just because I only had 2 days off last week, which is not a whole lot when you're gone, you know, the whole time during the, you know, you're gone for multiple days at hotels out of the house. So, no, that's not it. So import flight, import from SimBrief. Sorry, I'm talking and I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. All right, and this was my original flight, and I've changed the routing slightly to avoid that weather. So there we go. So let's just have a quick look and just so we could be aware of what the closures are here in San Juan that are listed on the ATIS. So let's see here. Sierra intersection closed. Sierra 3 and Sierra 4 intersections closed. Hotel closed between Hotel 1 and Hotel 3. Hotel 2 and 3 intersections closed. Taxiway Charlie closed between Bravo and Hotel. Where's Charlie? Charlie, yep, between Bravo and Hotel, yep. Use caution. Okay, so there are some closures. We should be able to get to the threshold to 08 though. Apron 2 and Apron 3 pushbacks. That's not us because we're here down on the south side on Apron 4. Okay, so that's, so yeah, so we'll plan to depart runway 08. That's good. And yeah, we can also get some takeoff data for runway 08. So while we're waiting here, let's get the takeoff data going for runway 08. So that does say 08. TJSJ-08, dry runway, sync the load sheet. Let's see if we can do it with packs on. It's hot, but I think we should be able to do it with packs on. Sync weather. And we should be able to, I'm not even going to bother with an intersection departure. We're just going to calculate the full length departure here. We should be able to do that, I think. Yeah, we can definitely do that. And yeah, we did get a solution with packs on, so that works. 8 takeoff plan limit 81 tons. That's good. Okay, so we can definitely do this. It's not a problem to get off runway 08 there. We do have some takeoff numbers. Our IRSs did finish aligning in the meantime, so we can do a couple more things here. So once our IRSs are aligned, then we can set up our ATSU, set up our ACAR system here. So now we can do a flight initialization.
No issues on the log cloud.
Thank you. Give it a couple seconds, it'll come back with JetBlue 6052, San Juan to Tampa, alternates Orlando, ETE, 2 hours and 44 minutes. That's not bad. That's a pretty reasonable flight time. I'm going to enjoy that, I think, for a stream. Alright, and now it's popped this up just because it's doing the next step, which is it's now going to call for boarding. Now the fueling is done, it's going to call for boarding automatically for us. There is a way to disable that if you tap the GSX button again, it'll stop popping that up again for you. Alright, so what was I doing here? Secondary flight plan was what I was looking for. So we can also get the secondary flight plan, and then we're ready to actually start our flows to the flight deck. So we'll just retrieve this, set it up. There it is, from TJSJ to KTPA with alternate Orlando. That looks good. And what we'll do is we'll just have a quick look here. TJSJ, KTPA, and compare those, if we would, to our flight plan, just to get a sense that we are looking at the correct route here. So Paldi, Feco, and then Maidiz eventually. Got some Yankee 308 to Maidiz. Yeah, that all looks good. Fawi, BR49 Victor to DHP, Feral, and then the arrival. So yeah, so that all looks good. So let's go ahead and activate that secondary flight plan. Check takeoff data, we will. AOC secondary flight plan is uplinked. Alright. Now we're ready to actually get started here with a quick overhead flow. If I can do this without losing my...
Thank you.
Alright, so no lights on the cockpit door controls. The IRSs are aligned, the alignment lights are out, everything is off here. We're just going to test the flight, the CVR, sorry, the cockpit voice recorder. Turn it on, press and hold the test button. One of the big hints on this, if it doesn't work, make sure the park brake's on. If the park brake's off, you can't do the ground test. Alright, oxygen, those are all black, good, these are all black. I just heard him test the APU, I didn't hear him test anything else, so we're going to test all the fire switches here. Should get a light on in there as well. APU I heard him test, so this should be very quick. APU fire, and red lights, engine 2 fire, we got the light on there. Alright, perfect. Refueling is done by the looks of it. So we're going to go ahead and this is a 320. We got nothing in the center tank, so we're going to turn on the left tank pumps, we're going to turn on the right tank pumps, we're going to turn on the mode selector to manual, leave the pumps off because there is nothing in the center tank, and we don't want the center tanks on. Apparently that used to be the thing, but there was a problem with...
the security and safety checks are all done. Are you good to start boarding?
Go for it.
Okay.
And normally I'd call for GSX now, but GSX is already boarding. I don't know if we can see any passengers in the bridge. We cannot really, but you can hear them anyways. GSX, Fenix2GSX already called for that boarding automatically. Alright, so yeah, we got the fuel in there. And we should check it against the flight plan as well. So let me just pull up the flight plan again here really quickly, just to make sure that 11.2 is the correct amount. And let's see here, block fuel 11.2. Perfect. Yes, that's exactly what we need. Perfect. All right. Electrical panel. Let's go. Batteries off. And it should actually say off. It shouldn't say 0 like that. It should just say off when they're off. And then we get very low voltages, less than 60 amps within 10 seconds mean that the batteries are charged enough. They don't need charging. These should be down here definitely. And given that it's hot outside, we probably should be starting that APU early. So we'll start as we come to it here. Back to off to save some gas, although at 32 degrees we may not want that. Strobe, nav lights are on. And let's go ahead, and we're not fueling. Let's go ahead and start that APU so we can get some cool air flow into our passengers. Seatbelts on, no smoke on, emergency lights armed. Alright. Nothing on the maintenance panel up there. Sorry guys, PA button is out. No lights on anything here. I'm gonna say it's not first flight of the day. And what did I say the altimeter was? I think it's at 2984, 8584, 2984. So let's go ahead and set this. While we're at it, set 3 times. Alright, and put constraints on. I like to have the VOR rows up just in case. This should be at 100. Constraints, VOR. Flight directors are both on, no flags, everything is correct on the PFD and the ND. Also the standby, the IESS looks good. Seatbelts, no smoking signs are good. Parking brake, TCAS standby, company message. And that's probably, yeah, I don't know what the company message, oh, that's probably the load sheet, so we'll check it as we get to it. Let's see here, gear is down, anti-skid is on. The date is October the 2nd. APU's available, so what I'll do is I'll start a timer, and in 3 minutes we'll get that air flowing from the APU. I'm gonna throw up the Unicom frequency right now so we can hear if anybody's coming, and we'll hope for some ATC. Cal, weather, terrain, up, off, and 4 degrees, and the spoilers are stowed. All the switches are normal. Let's see here. Pressurization, landing elevation is in auto mode and it is at 0 feet. Status page, Cat 2 and op. That's fine. Usually that's off and on before we get started here. Once we get going, that should disappear. Alright, thrusters are idle, engines are off, the ignition switch is in normal, rudder trim is centered, parking brake is set, the manual gear extension is there and it's stowed. If we had a company station, we'd usually set that up on COM2 and listen to it now. And transponder standby on the number 1 side. Altitude reporting's on. We can have it on above, and we should take off with TARA. Alright, and a quick instrument check. So we should have one FD2, 2984 inches showing 80 feet. 2984 inches showing 70 feet. 2984 inches showing 80 feet. And the field elevation in Puerto Rico is 10 feet, so it's off by a little bit. Within actually a tolerance of error. Usually we get 100 feet, so yeah, I'm just going to check and make sure live weather's up, that's all. And we are on real weather. Give it a couple seconds, this will probably adjust itself here. That's probably why my times were not showing up correctly. That's better. 10:02. It's not 10:02. It's 14:17. What is going on with this clock here? All right. Try that one more time here. See, this is correct. Oh, that's the date still. 14:17. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Good. Sorry. Duh. All right, and there we go. Now we got 0 feet, 0 feet. Yeah, now that we've adjusted the weather. So, yeah, we'll talk about them when we get going. But MSFS update. Oh man, heading 013, and 013. All right, we are ready to get set up in the box here. Let's do this as quick as we can because we got lots of stuff to do. The FO is back in the flight deck. He's all caught up. So the A320-200, this has the CFM 56.5 Bravo engines, the bigger engines for the 320, 7th September to 4th of October. That's valid for 2 more days, then we got to do an update. Performance factor, I'm pretty sure on this flight plan we had it set to 0. Fuel bias plus 0, yep. All right, so initialization again. So we've got San Juan to Tampa, the altitude MCO. This is JetBlue 1656, right? 1652. I can't seem to get this one right. 1652. I don't know why I want to say 56. 1652. All right, and the IRSs, we did check the initialization location. Everything's initialized properly. Let's go ahead and bring up the sim brief panel so I don't keep overwriting this window here. So cost index of 5. We could probably bump that up once we get going. Cruise flight level 360. And temperature deviation there. ISO deviation plus 11. So actually minus top of climb ISO deviation plus 12, which would be minus 45. That doesn't seem to compare properly. If it's 30,000, should be minus 45. Yeah, no, that is plus 12, so that looks like it's already compensated for here. And 53.3 for the tropopause. Sounds good when it's that warm. So departing TJSJ, we've already said runway 08, and I believe our flight plan had us on the Akoni 3. That is correct. Akoni 3 as far as PALD. I don't have a PAL-D transition. So let's just pull this up really quickly while we're setting up this flight plan and make sure that this is correct. So a Coney 3 and PAL-D is halfway there. So what I'll do is I'll put SAPO in there and then we'll fix it in a second here. So I'll put SAPO because I'm not sure if a Coney would include PAL-D or not. So a Coney, PAL-D, SAPO, then we got DISCON, then we got FECO, which I believe is what we should have after PAL-D. PAL-D direct FECO. So let's clear this SAPO out. Let's clear this PAL-D out. And now that is correct. A Coney, PAL-D, that's the end of the SID, and then direct to FECO. We can insert that. At the other end in Tampa, we're planning runway 1 left for arrival. So we'll do an ILS to 1 left. Star the Bullfrog 2. And that is at Feral Intersection. So ILS 1 left. Approach vias, I'm going to use no vias for the time being until we get a little closer in and reanalyze this. But so we've got ILS 1 left, no via, Bullfrog 2. And it's the Feral transition, there we go. Alright, so that all looks good. I've got no step climbs, I've got no lat longs, total distance 1108, and do we have the distance on here anywhere? No. Alright, so we can go up here anyways. Ground distance 1126, so within reason with with a runway change. It's very much within reason. Nothing special on the RadNav page. It's going to auto-tune the localizer, the secondary flight plan, so we'll copy over the active. We'll set up an immediate return, so after our DISCON, after departure, we're going to set up an immediate return onto runway 10 here. And that way, if we have any major disasters after departure, fires or security issues, we can do an immediate return. It's already set up, so we can activate our ILS to 10, and we're on our way in real super quick. So it's in the secondary. Perfect. Init Bravo page, 0.2 for taxi sounds pretty reasonable here. Route reserve, always put it at 0. It's just have the extra fuel, the reserve show up under extra. Alternate looks like 1.3, and the final reserve the final 1.1. So 1.1, 1.3, that's up to 2.4, which is our final reserve plus our alternate reserve, so that's good. And ZFW, so we should have it already in here, and I think they've already done boarding in the time it took us to get going here. By the way, that's more than 3 minutes. Let's go ahead and get that APU bleed on, because if I look inside the cabin today, when it's this hot outside, it's actually not bad. 24, 23, 25, it's actually not bad. One important thing with the Airbus too, if you're doing that, is you have to make sure that the PCA, the ground air, is removed before you turn on the APU bleed. Don't have the packs on when the ground air is on. Alright, so let's do AOC. Let's just check our received messages here, and looks like we got a final load sheet and we got a preliminary load sheet. So I'm just going to skip right to the final load sheet here. So it's a little bit hard to read sometimes, but that looks like 59.5 to me. 59.5. I'm going to go ahead and accept this. And 140 plus 1 in the passengers. Max ZFW 31. And it looks like our takeoff C of G is 28.2. So 28.2 will put us at about 0.1 nose down. So I'm just going to put that in right now, 0.1 down. Just so I don't forget. Alright, and sorry, back to the init Bravo page. Block fuel 11.2. So I just read that off the ECAM there, so it is correct, 11.2. Gives us a takeoff weight of 70.5, and our numbers were for 72.1. So we are within a 2 ton window, which is fine. And wind component today, our average wind is average wind 268 at 15. Average wind component of minus 13. And let's just check our burn here. So our burn should be about 7.1 for 2 hours and 44 minutes. I got 7.0244. That's pretty darn reasonable. And 1.8 extra. So I've got 0.7 and basically points. I've got 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. I've got a little bit of more extra than I should have here. Another 0.1 there, 1.6. Little tiny bit extra above what we should have, but pretty darn close. We'll see how that works out. Alright, so let's clear out that wind again. And you should be able to press the clear button. There's a few little glitches in here, things that the Fenix doesn't actually do that the real airplane can do. Alright, let's put in the wind request, and let's get our perf data here. So we're looking at no takeoff shift, flaps 1. It wants down 0.0 and 54 degrees. So flaps 1, 54 degrees. The down 0.1 is very reasonable. And 151, 152, 154, 1010 across the bottom. So 151, 152, 154, 1010 across the bottom. So for noise to departure, 1010, 1010, and 1010. 226 as our green dot speed, our clean speed, minimum clean speed. We'll carry that forward to pre-select it for the climb. And then let's go back to init just to acknowledge those winds. So wind data uplink, make sure everything's blue. If anything's green, it's not inserted. It's downloaded, but it's not inserted into the flight plan. So make sure all 3 phases, it's blue. All right, we finished with the perf page. Prog, cruise at 360. The optimal is 330 for our given weight. The max 363. By the time we get up there, we should actually probably be okay, but we'll keep an eye on it. And I'm just going to put the threshold of runway 10. In case we have to do an immediate return, we can come to the prog page and get a very quick bearing and distance for ourselves. Other than that, just last but not least, data position monitor and check that our drifts are very much within reason, less than 5 miles. They are. We are good to go. So we don't have any ATC online that covers our departure. There is Havana Center right next door, but they don't actually cover San Juan. Fuel we've got. Logbook's been checked, and final load numbers are in. So we can just have a quick look at our flight plan here, make sure that everything looks appropriate. So what we do is we put up the plan mode here, just to sort of compare the FMS to the plan here. So the SID here, the Coney 3 departure, GPS, radar, and RNF1 required, jets only, and basically for runway 8 or 10, it looks like it's about the same. It's runway heading. So 078 to 520, then climbing left turn, heading 350. So straight ahead, 078 till 520, and then we do 350 degrees, manual leg, assign vectors to a Coney, then on track 327 to Paldi. So a Coney, and then track to Paldi, top altitude 5,000 for departure, Paldi on Sapo transition, 5,000 lower expected. Spec clearance to flight level 280 lower altitude, request 7 minutes after departure. Alright, and that's basically it, I believe, here. Alright, I'm just going to reset that timer because we do have the AP running. We don't need it anymore. Just trying to think. Yeah, I think I've got everything I need. So, let's do this really quick. Are you ready for the departure briefing?
Go ahead.
Alright, so today, first of all, technical status of the aircraft. There's no MELs, there's nothing wrong with the aircraft that we're aware of. The only thing I didn't actually check, and I should have checked before I started this briefing, was NOTAMs. So let's just have a quick look down here at the NOTAMs and just see if there's anything that affects us. So we do have a couple of taxiway closures, so that'll affect our taxi out. It should be along our route, but we just need to be kind of aware of what's going on there, and they are also listed here. Hotel, Hotel 3 and Hotel 4, Hotel 1, Hotel 3, Hotel 2, Hotel 3, 8.6, ILS 08, Sierra 3, Sierra 4, Sierra. Okay, yeah, that's all good. Sierra between approach and 08, and taxiway Alpha close. So maybe that does affect our taxi route. So we can't actually use the full length. We have to use Sierra 1 intersection, by the sounds of it. Okay, so 1028, heavy equipment adjacent sides, 8 threshold lighting and serviceable, and nothing for the SIDS. So, okay, so having read that now, more descriptive than the 8 is we do have to do an intersection departure. It doesn't have a full length it doesn't have any intersection information here. It just has the full length. So what we could do, yeah, we should be able to actually put in an intersection there, but we can't. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the departure from Sierra. It's going to be, and we should be able to get this information, but we can't. It looks like it's probably about a 500-foot takeoff shift, maybe. Actually, if we can find information about the display threshold here, that would work. And what we can do is on the airport reference page here. Let's see what the actual. So on 08 from the threshold itself, it is 10,000 feet from the threshold, whereas the actual full length of the runway is 10,400. So the threshold there is at Sierra 1, so that's good. Okay, so we can do a 400-foot takeoff shift. These numbers should still work. What we could do is we could probably take a couple degrees off the flex temp. We should be doing these calculations properly, but because it doesn't allow us to actually do the takeoff shift here, we're going to put in a 400-foot takeoff shift for Sierra 1. I'm going to knock this flex down to 50 degrees to give us a little bit more push. I don't think it's going to be an issue. It's a 10,000-foot runway with a 320 that's not fully loaded, 72.1 takeoff. The maximum planned takeoff weight you can do on this runway is 82 tons, so we actually have a 10-ton margin. Just a slight increase in power up should be more than enough to cover it. Okay. Yeah, so we are doing today the Akoni 3 RNAV departure out of San Juan. The routing constraints are all as published in the box there. The top altitude is 5,000, so let's make sure that's set here. Oops. Alright, and so 5,000 feet is set. Yeah, we've got no special noise abatement procedures, company pages, we don't have any as well. Let's see here, so level of service is not an issue today, and weather is looking good.
Hey guys, all packs are on board. Are we clear to close?
Go for it. Yes. Yes. Cleared to close. Cleared to close. Yes. You suck. Yes. Cleared to close. Cleared to close. Cleared to close.
Takeoff runway.
Cancel checklist.
Takeoff runway confirmed. Approach pads clear of traffic.
Cancel checklist.
Cabin crew proceeded for takeoff.
Cancel checklist. Cleared to close. Yes. I give up on you. Okay, fine. You know what? I give up on you. Whatever. You're not going to sequence. It's fine. Let's focus on the important things here. Sometimes FS2 could be very annoying. Where was I here? Yeah. So departure today off runway 08 with the 400-foot takeoff shift for the Sierra 1 intersection. Flaps 1 departure. 50-degree flex temperature. V1 151, VR 152, V2 154, and let's see here. 1010 across the bottom. The standard transition of 18,000 feet. 226. The green dot speed carried forward for the climb. It'll be a managed departure. Get the autopilot on probably somewhere before 5,000 feet anyways. I may hand fly for a little bit on departure today, but we'll get the autopilot on pretty quickly thereafter, so about 5,000 feet, no later than that I would expect we'll have the autopilot on. Yeah, and I think that's about it. Any questions?
No questions.
Alright, so we would do our emergency briefings. I'm not going to bother with them today because I'll say we've already flown together, and no single engine taxi out. Let's get going. I think we've done enough. We definitely have the finals. We're definitely in a good position here. Alright, so I'm going to close this. One thing I'm going to do is bring up the GSX window again, just because it's going to prompt me here in a second. So what I do is I push this to intercom, and that's going to trigger this to close, and we should probably get rid of background power if we haven't already. Looks like we did at some point. I don't remember getting rid of it, honestly.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
So the only reason I need to have this up is just to specify the direction in a second once it gets all organized here. In the meantime, cockpit preparation checklist.
Gear pins and covers.
Removed.
Fuel quantity.
11,200 kilograms.
Seatbelts.
On.
Adios.
Nav.
Barrel ref.
2984 inches set.
2984 set. Cockpit preparation checklist complete.
Before start checklist. Before start checklist.
Parking brake.
Set.
Takeoff speeds and thrust.
V1151, V2, VR152, V2154. Flexing 50 degrees.
V1 1 4 5. V rotate 1 4 5. V2 1 4 8. Windows.
Release parking brakes, please.
Closed.
Beacon.
Release parking
On.
brakes, please.
Before start checklist complete.
Alright, and you saw that this guy basically, the whole process started automatically. As soon as I triggered this intercom switch, the only thing I had to do
Parking brakes.
was specify a turn direction. Alright, so, we're going to go ahead and go. Brakes off.
Commencing push.
Ready for pushback, delaying and start to advised.
Start at full.
Here we go. Just make sure that this thing knows that we're tracking. Okay, connected pre-flight. Yes, good. Starting engine 2.
Okay.
One other really neat thing that this actually does, that Fenix2GSX does for you, and they actually just took it away as a feature, but it used to do it up until they just did an update just the last day or so, was that this nose wheel steering disconnect is not very well used within GSX. So it only appears when the tug is actually physically connected to the aircraft, which is not the case in the real world in a lot of airlines. Most airlines, what the ramp crews tend to do is as soon as they hook up the tow bar, they'll put in their pin, even if the tug's not actually hooked up. So it could be, you know, they'll hook up the tug at some point during the preparation while they're loading the aircraft. They'll hook up the tug. But whatever point they bring over the tow bar, usually whoever brings over the tow bar plugs in the tow bar, immediately puts in the nose wheel steering disconnect pin. What Fenix does is Fenix only shows this flag when the tug is actually connected to the airplane. So when you're using GSX, you'll never see this until like you're pretty much starting the pushback, which is not really correct. Fenix to GSX actually fixed that. Looks like we got a good start on number 2. Starting engine 1.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, they had Fenix2GSX fixed that. They just actually came out with a new update. I found it yesterday. I'm not sure. It can only have been out for a couple of days.
Parking brakes.
I think it had to go. I think it went along with the recent sim
Cockpit
update.
to ground.
Park
We have a
brake.
good engine start. You can disconnect.
Clear disconnect. So we disconnect the pin and everything. But yeah, you'll notice that this option, synchronized bypass pin by state during pushback, has actually been shaded out. So because they were actually, they admitted it in their notes that they were abusing a GSX variable that was actually intended for something else. So they basically fixed that. You can still use it, but it's not, they don't actually want you to use it. They say it can cause some untoward issues with the aircraft tipping back on its tail when you're trying to push or rolling it in towards the tug. So they've kind of taken that away. I hope that's only temporary because that was another really nice fix that they've done. Nuclear Jet 748, good morning. I didn't even notice you there. Sorry about that. I'm just, you know, so preoccupied with my own thing here. There's so much going on. But welcome aboard. Leaving San Juan, going to Tampa. Alright, looks like we got 2 good starts on the engines. Ramp crew is removing that so that the nose wheel steering pin's gone, and then once they hold up the pin, they give them the thumbs up so that you know it's out, and you'll be able to tow. And we have a very firm rule at our company: you never release the guys from the headset until you see that the pin has been properly removed and the flag is gone on your memo page. Always make sure that flag is gone before you try to start taxiing, or you're going to have a very rough time taxiing, to say the least. All right, it hasn't happened too often, but one time it did happen where it wasn't quite triggered properly, and we did manage to, because we hadn't let them go, we managed to fix the problem. So he's got the pin in his hand, you can see it there. You definitely don't have the nose wheel steering disconnect. It's good to go. All right, so we got 2 good starts. I'm being a very bad pilot here because I'm kind of doing a whole bunch of stuff at once, and I'm talking a lot while we're doing stuff here. All right, and he's doing his thing already without me. All right, then I have some stuff I have to do. So engine mode back to norm, APU bleed off, anti-ice is, as required. APU master switch can also go off. ECAM status. So center tank fuel unusable, center tank pumps, that's fine. And nose wheel steering disconnect, memo check. Yeah, make sure we do that before we let the ramp guys go. After start checklist.
Anti-ice.
Off.
ECAM status.
Checked.
Pitch trim.
.1 nose down. Set and checked.
VATSIM.
Centered. Neutral.
After start checklist complete.
Alright.
Ready.
Clear left side.
Clear right side.
Alright, so here we go. Give her a little bit of juice. Now I see that everybody here in the FSLTL world is departing the wrong way, so I may have to kill FSLTL here in a second. Brake check.
Pressure 0.
Alright, so you may think that I'm kind of taxiing a little bit oddly here, but when you look at the closures that were here, hotel between Hotel 3 and Hotel 1, there's no way to taxi this way and get to Sierra 1, so we have to go past the whole terminal to get to Sierra 1 for departure 08, which is fine because it's a nice looking terminal. A lot of VFR has done a very nice job on their scenery. I do like it. I think it's good looking scenery. And it's funny because the frame rate, I'm just looking at the frame rate on my on OBS there, and it's just absolutely abysmal right now. I don't know what you guys are seeing for a frame rate, but it looks like it's quite low. The sim is actually taking the priority, and it's really got a very nice frame rate. And it's a shame that what gets transmitted out of the network is actually as poor as it is. I never realized how poor this was, but I don't know if it's just a recent thing, but the frame rate that's coming out of my video card is fantastic. It's definitely 30 frames per second, but what you guys are seeing is more like 3 or 4 or 5 frames per second. So at some point, I am going to upgrade the video card. I'm hoping that will improve that. So I'm sorry that it kind of looks kind of a little bit rough, and I'm sorry. It really does not look that rough to me. To me, it honestly looks very smooth when I look around. I'm able to maintain a pretty solid 30 frames per second now in the sim. Even flying the Fenix, even flying, even with the flight trackers and everything else going, and let's just check and make sure it is tracking. It does know we're in the taxi out stage, so it is tracking properly. Fantastic. I'm going to have to kill FSLTL here, I think. And the nice thing is you can do it right here in the sim, too. If I have it here, here's my FSLTL traffic, and you can literally just, you can either remove nearby traffic or just simply reset the traffic injection altogether. What I'm going to actually do is I'm just going to shut it off completely. So I'm going to shut off the actual injector program, at least temporarily till we get airborne, just because I don't want to be landing on 26 when we're trying to depart 08. And it's a bit of a pity because now it makes it look completely lifeless, but if they were able to kind of conform to what we were doing, then I wouldn't have such a problem with it, but yeah, we'll just be stuck with any VATSIMers. Speaking of VATSIMers, San Juan traffic, JetBlue 1652 is taxiing from apron 4, taxiing Sierra for departure runway 08 from Sierra 1. Fire truck's racing me. Hopefully he's not going to cut me off. Alright, let's see if we can get around the terminal here before we do the flight control check, because this area would be very congested. I guess we'll let the fire truck go first. At least he's not driving down the taxiways. Some scenery, they drive right down the taxiways, and it's very frustrating because then, like, you're just constantly, like, they don't get out of your way. At least here, he kind of crossed my path, but then he's out of the way again. Some places you just can't do it. I'm going to guess that's actually a real VATSIM pilot over there. United Airplane. Because I killed FSLTL altogether. So we'll just get through the whole ramp area here because it probably is pretty congested. A lot of risk factor there. Once we get past the ramp area, we'll do the flight control check before takeoff checks. Yeah, I don't know why. OBS used to stream so nicely, and I don't know why it's suddenly the frame rate is just, it's absolutely terrible, really, it is. Using the hardware encoder. It's trying to get good quality, but maybe I'll try medium quality. Just let me know if that, see if that improves the frame rate at all. Maybe because I had that low, high quality, but it was, wow. And that really did, didn't it? Is it me, or did that really improve the frame rate of the video itself? Because it definitely looks to me like it's a lot better than it was a second ago. Just looking at my output stream. So I don't know, something changed in the settings perhaps. I have had to tweak the settings in. There was a little incident a couple of streams ago. Looks quite a bit better. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for letting me know too. Thank you for the feedback. 'Cause yeah, I noticed that when I was rewatching the previous stream. I was like, oh, that is a very poor frame rate, which it didn't seem to ever do that before. I noticed just in the last stream it seemed like it had a very poor frame rate. So anyways, let's do the flight control check. Flight control check.
Full up. Full down. Neutral. Full left. Full right. Neutral.
Rudder.
Full left. Full right. Neutral.
Alright, he's doing the last couple of checks here, and then we're going to do the before takeoff checklist. Taxi checklist.
Flight controls.
Checked.
Checks. Flap setting.
Config 1+F.
Config 1+F. Radar and predictive feature system.
On and auto.
Engine mode selector.
Normal.
ECAM memo.
Takeoff, no blue.
Taxi checklist complete.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Alright.
all portable electronic
I'm getting better at
equipment
this.
on
I'm getting
mobile
better at
phones
using
should be
this.
switched off as we
It
are
looks a
now
little
about to
slower at
start our
times, but it looks
flight
better
safety
overall.
briefing. We are now going to take you through our
Now it looks
safety
like it's really kind of
procedures and equipment.
ground to a halt again, and I don't know why.
As this information is for
I'll
your
try it.
benefit,
I'll try not
we
knocking
ask
down
you
one more
all to
setting here.
listen carefully. The safety card in your seats area shows details of escape routes, oxygen masks,
Does it look okay?
and life jackets. It also shows
I'm gonna
the
try
braking
knocking down
position, which
one
you
more
must
setting
stop
here.
in an emergency landing. In the unlikely event of having to use the escape slide, leave all
Fast,
hand
low
baggage
quality.
behind
Keep
and
free.
remove
Fast,
high heel
low quality.
shoes as they may tear the slide.
And I'm hoping that when I do get a better video card, it'll be able to code the video faster as well.
Your seat back is upright with the armrest down and your seat
Because that's
belt
much more like the
fastened.
level of video that I'm seeing.
Seatbelt is
And then this is a new
fastened
problem that
and
I've seen a
adjusted
lot
like this.
lately. Is missing
And
scenery
unfastened
tiles
like this.
everywhere. Everywhere I go, all
When
these
the
airports that I go to, all of a sudden seem to have missing scenery tiles.
You must
I've
go
never
back
seemed
to
to have
your
missing
seat
scenery
and
tiles
fasten
before, and
your
I'm not sure what to
seatbelt
think about
securely.
it. I really am not. I'm not sure if it's
We recommend you keep your seatbelt
I'm not sure if it's my
fastened
sim
at all
settings, if I
times
need to
of visible
reinstall, but it's like
to
it's all
avoid
sorts of
being
different airports. It's
disturbed
very
in flight.
frustrating. I see this all over the place now when I'm flying around. Just small individual scenery tiles missing.
If the cabin air supplies fail, oxygen will be provided. Masks like this will appear automatically.
San Juan traffic. JetBlue
Stay in your seat
1652,
until
take
the
position
mask
runway
calls you.
08 for departure from Sierra
This
1.
will open your oxygen supply. Place the mask
Runway
over
entry
your mouth
procedure.
and nose like this, and breathe normally, adjusting
Takeoff
the band
Rwy
to secure
confirmed.
it.
Approach
Make
pads
sure
clear
your
of
own
traffic.
mask is fitted before helping anyone else.
Cabin crew proceeded for
Your
takeoff.
life jacket is underneath or beside your seat. In the event of landing on water, remove the life jacket from its container and pull it over your head. Pass the tapes round your waist and tie them securely in a double bow.
Lineup
at the side.
checklist.
Takeoff
Play.
runway.
Pull the red toggle as
Confirmed.
Checked.
the air can be topped up by
Decals.
using the mouthpiece.
TARA.
Here for attracting attention.
Packs 1 and 2.
Do not inflate your life jacket until you are outside the aircraft.
Repeat
We
last.
will supply life cots for
Packs
babies
1 and 2.
life jackets for infants.
On.
Finally, ladies and gentlemen,
Lineup
please
checklist
study
complete.
the safety card and take notice of the fasten seatbelt sign. May we remind you that electrical portable items such as games, computing and word processing equipment may interfere with the aircraft system.
San Juan
and
traffic.
must be
JetBlue
switched off during
1652,
takeoff and
rolling
landing.
08.
Telephones must be switched off while the aircraft
Takeoff.
engines are running.
Check.
As this is a no smoking service, the no smoking sign will remain on for the duration of the flight. Smoking
And
is
Flex
not
50
permitted at
SRS
any time
runway
while
auto
on
thrust
board.
blue.
If you have any questions, please ask one of the crew. Thank you.
Thrust set 100 knots.
Roger.
V1 rotate. Positive climb.
Gear up.
Gear up.
Nav.
Gear up.
Thrust climb. Climb. Alt blue. Auto thrust. Flap 0.
Speed checked. Flaps 0.
Push speed.
Speed checked. Flaps 3.
Flaps 0.
Speed checked. Flaps 0.
Loud. Why can't I push speed? What? No. Why can't I push the bloody speed knob? I remember we used to have this problem. Why can't I push any of these knobs? Oh, for crying out loud. Alright, well at least I figured it out. Alright, you right click on it, it pushes it. That's weird. What How do you pull on it?
You can memo.
Cancel checklist.
Roger.
Okay.
Checks.
Stop being an idiot. Okay, so that's kind of annoying. Yeah, why can I not push these knobs anymore? Ah, my god. Sometimes I hate these sim updates. So, yeah, yesterday there was a sim update. Or this weekend anyway. So, yeah, I finally got around to installing it yesterday. And my god, what an annoying sim update. Because it forced a logout out of my Xbox account. Which I had to then go back and log in. But it got into a loop where it would not run the update, because every time I run the update it said it needed to be logged in, and while I was logging in it would fail to find the update, and it would log me out again. It was just like, oh my god, like, so I ended up having to kill the sim, reset the computer, and redo that. And then when I restarted the computer, every option was, not every option, but so many options were right back to defaults. It reset like so many of the configuration options. Oh my god, it was frustrating to deal with. It was extremely frustrating. And now it seems like I can't even push and pull these knobs. And I don't even begin to know where or how to... Alright, so there's 10,000. So we can go ahead and get lights off. And it looks like a nice day. We can go ahead and go seatbelts off. And what we can also do here, because I'm just sitting here sailing along, what we should be doing is going direct to a Coney. Because I'm just frustrated because I can't even figure out how to push and pull these knobs, and I didn't even realize that. Like, honestly, like, I didn't even know there was a sim update until I went and ran my sim last night to go and try something else, and then I spent all this time screwing around with the bloody settings. Alright, so go away from the status page. Cruise above max flight level. That's fine for now. What have we got for a max flight level here? What are we showing for performance here? Not for prog. 365. So let's go ahead and go 3.4 as our cruise level here. We would request that with ATC, so a cruise level of 340, and let's go ahead and reset this cruise level to 340 right now, and that's fine. Because I set it to 4 or 5 because I was messing around with it, but why can't I push and pull the knobs now anymore? Like that, oh my god, that's annoying. And I'm gonna look it up really quickly because that's going to be very difficult to fly this airplane. And, yeah. So there have been issues with this, loss of ability to push and pull knobs on the Fenix and the fly-by-wire that have been broken by various sim updates, and it looks like there is a setting that I'm going to have to go in and mess with. Just feel unlucky you were able to complete the sim update. For many people, it caused the software to end up in a stuck update loop, and that was the thing. Like, I was stuck in an update loop. Honestly, it wasn't until I managed to basically I had to kill the sim process, restart my computer, and restart the update process, and then it finally actually would run. But yeah, it got stuck in a loop where it would log me out of my Xbox account. I would try to log back in, and then because it was running an update, it wouldn't finish the login, and then it would say I wasn't logged in again and ask me to log in again before I could do the update. So it was, oh my god, what a frustrating update. How is Microsoft and Seldom still releasing broken updates like this? So I'm going to need to do something here to try and fix this. So I'm gonna go check some options here, because yeah, like the other thing was that when I restarted the sim, 3/4 of my options were reset back to defaults. All the accessibility options were turned back on, which the accessibility options are fine for some people who are perhaps not pilots, but I don't need the accessibility options, and I don't want them. I do not want them. Don't turn them all back on. So I had to go through and turn all these things off at least. And the one thing, thank God, was at least the controller configurations. All my controllers configurations were kept intact. so I didn't have to go and reconfigure all of my honeycomb, axes and everything, and all the buttons on my yoke, because oh my god, that would have just I would have probably just given up. So at least thank God I found out last night, because it took me probably about 45 minutes to an hour to run the sim update and actually get most of the settings back to where they should be, where I wanted them. Why are they resetting configuration settings? That's the other thing that really bothers me, is why are we resetting configuration settings, after we see now I can't even pull standards. So we're going to have to announce the update issue on Twitter. There's no way they are testing their release. It's pure incompetence. Well, that's just it. Like, there's no way they are doing any kind of a realistic testing if this is the kind of stuff that's coming up. So okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put this screen up for a second here. I'm going to go back into the options menu, and I'm going to go and see if I can find the option for so options, general options, so accessibility, which everything should be off. General options, accessibility, and cursor settings. What am I looking for? Cursor settings, accessibility, try switching between legacy and lock mode. Cockpit interaction system. All right, so let's try going to legacy mode and see if that works. Yes, okay, that works. Okay, get myself back up here. So now I can go ahead and pull standard. But like, why? Why are we resetting all these configuration options for existing users? It's one thing if it's a new user, if it's a new installation, but for people who have already chosen these options and decided that this is the way they want to fly, why are we going backwards in time? Oh my god, and this is not the first time it's happened. There have been a couple of other sim updates that Asobo has pushed that have done vast resets of the options. Maybe not every option, but have reset vast swaths of the options in the options menu, and it's very frustrating, because like I was fairly busy all weekend. I was fairly busy last week. I was fairly busy all weekend. So last night I thought maybe I should go and sit down and see if there's a sim update ready to go, because I think that sometimes I'm like, I don't want to start the sim up, half an hour before a stream and suddenly find that there is now a sim update that I have to install, or any other updates for that matter. There's so many different pieces of software that are kind of running together that I'd like to kind of do a test flight in my chosen aircraft the day before a stream, just to make sure everything's tweaked properly, everything works still. Yeah, and this is exactly the reason why. And I honestly, didn't, by the time the sim update ran last night, I loaded up the airplane briefly. I didn't even try to do anything with it. Basically what I did was I checked out my Tampa scenery was installed properly, my San Juan scenery was installed properly. I didn't actually touch the airplane itself, so I didn't even realize that I had interface issues. But just, why? Why reset these options for existing users? The existing users have tweaked these options for a reason, to be useful. Anyways, yeah, I was gonna, that was one of the things I wanted to rant on about, and so commence ranting. Yeah, who's testing these updates? Because they seem to think they have a beta test phase, but it certainly makes you wonder, because how are these things getting out of the production cycle with these glaring issues? It just blows my mind. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So that was the Fenix2GSX demo. Anyways, now that we're airborne, you've kind of seen how the whole thing works. But the thing I love is that it's extremely hands off. I sit there and I do my thing, and the ground services happen automatically, and they link and sync to the airplane. So the fuel that needs to be in the airplane is automatically loaded into the airplane. So it interfaces with the tablet, with the flight plan that's loaded through the tablet. And as soon as that tablet's loaded, it commences a refuel, it commences the catering. So all I had to do to get this whole thing going was to load the flight plan into my tablet, and when we were ready for pushback, just hit that volume knob and select my push direction. That was all I had to do as a pilot, which was just great. I think it was just, that is kind of the way these things should happen. And it's not to take issue with GSX in and of itself, because GSX in and of itself is a fantastic piece of software. The level of detail, the animation, the number of things that you can do, and the interactivity of it are really great assets. The fact that you can pick a gate that you want to go to at your destination airport and they will marshal you in, they'll push you back in the direction you want to be pushed back. That's all fantastic. That's all great. But in the real airline world, we don't even ask for 90% of that stuff. Catering arrives without being called. Fuel trucks arrive and fuel the airplane to the required level, usually without being called. When you get into the major airline world, the fuel trucks, the fuel delivery companies, they get the fuel orders automatically. When a flight plan is made, boom, that fuel load is then, the fuel load from that flight plan is then also sent directly to the fuelers at the departure airport, so that they, you know, unless something changes, there's not even like phone calls being made. It literally is a printout that just rolls off automatically. The guys collect it, they hand it to the truck drivers, they go to the various airplanes and fuel them automatically without having to be asked to do anything. If the fuel load changes, okay, you might need to make a phone call. But on a normal day where you're going to depart with a planned filed fuel, the only time you'll see the fueler is when he comes up to drop off the receipt, and that's usually the time that they'll confirm that the fuel load's correct. They'll say, hey, is that the right amount of fuel? You look at it, you look at your flight plan, yeah, it's good, thank you very much. He hands you the fuel ticket, and boom, you're done. If there's an error or problem, then we can discuss it, absolutely. And if you're not around, then they'll often just leave the fuel ticket behind in the flight deck, and you can always call them back if there is a change, if there is a problem, if there's an issue, something that needs to happen differently. But most of the time, the fueling comes and starts automatically. So Fenix2GSX does that automatically. They can call catering to you, and you can also customize this. So if you don't ever want to see the catering truck in MSFS with GSX, just uncheck the box. It'll never happen. Automatically start boarding when refueling and catering are finished, so that'll happen automatically. If you wanted to, you could press that intercom button again to also start that process while the catering and fueling is happening. When we get to our destination, you're going to see that the boarding will start automatically as soon as we get the beacon off after we arrive. Yeah, it just it's a really neat, useful system. It does automatic jetway stair operation handling. Notice this time that I did not have to go in there and manually call up that jetway at all. It basically this coordinates between GSX and Fenix, and will make sure that the jetway just operates once. It's not like, well, the Fenix calls for it once, but then GSX also calls for it. So it came forward, then it went back again because both of them called for it separately. This kind of does away with some of those errors, those glitches, those double calls, and between the two of them, it only calls it once. It comes over, and then when you're ready to go, it takes it away. It's a very slick system, and the thing is, like honestly, it runs in your tray. You don't even have to have this window open. This is the configuration window. I kind of like to have it open, especially to see the log menu. I'm still getting used to this. I've only been using this for about a week and a half, but it seems to work very reliably. I have had one or two glitches with it. I won't say it's been perfect. I have had one or two times where it's done some weird stuff at the start of the boarding process, or something hasn't loaded, something's got out of order, and or it's triggered GSX out of order, and something got thrown off a little bit. So I won't say it's perfect, but I probably used this about 6 or 7 times so far. I think I've had problems with it one time, and the rest of the time it's worked pretty slick. It's a very slick little utility. I really like it, so I encourage you guys to check it out. It's called Fenix2GSX. You can download it off of just search for it, but I believe you can download it off of the author's GitHub just directly. I don't think they even have it like on flightsim.to. You just go there and just download directly off their GitHub. If you're going to use it, please, and the author will beg you the same thing, read the documentation. It's a little bit lengthy. It's not terribly lengthy, but it does go into what to expect, what the triggers are, how to trigger the various aspects of it, and what it will do, what it won't do. It'll give you very specific instructions on the installation process as well, because I believe you need to have a yes, you need to have a couple of the system requirements. There's a WSM module that you have to specifically make sure you have installed in your community folder. That's not actually from Fenix2GSX, but Fenix2GSX makes use of it. So there's a few things that need to be installed. There's also a .NET runtime that needs to be installed for this to work. So follow the installation instructions. I will say, like, the installation instructions, It's not all automatic. There's a few things you need to make sure are installed, but if you go and read the installation instructions and follow them, it installs very nicely with very little issue. And then, yeah, it gives you the ability to auto start it even with the sim if you want. Gives you some tips on things, on settings that you need to have in Fenix, settings you need to have in GSX. So please, if you're going to use this, read the documentation, set it up. But, you know, if you do follow the instructions, it works very well. And the reason why I'm pleading with you on this one, let's see if I can find it here. The reason why I plead with you so much on this is actually what, if I can find it here. So, release notes for the latest version. Let's see here if I can find the latest. Yeah, here we go. And this is the reason why I say read the instructions, because he ended up posting the author. His name is Fragtality. Posted this too. So he kind of told you about the big thing with the bypass pin option being disabled now because it causes glitches. But the other thing is the support notice here. Effective with version 0.3.4, which is the current version, support will be extremely reduced to almost zero. Issues opened and messages pings on the other platforms will be ignored or closed in most cases. If I find your issue worthwhile and report it in a usable manner, clear description with logs, I might look into it, but almost every problem I deal with lately has something to do with weird settings, broken sim, or GSX setups, or people just not reading anything I wrote. And I feel for this guy 100%. There's nothing worse than spending a whole bunch of time troubleshooting other people's problems that are not related to your software. And people, I get it, like people, you know, they want to use the software and they have problems with it, but I feel for it. Like, as your software becomes more popular, you start to get more, you know, oh, help me, it's not working requests, to the point where you're not even doing any more development because you're spending all of your time supporting your software. So I really do feel for this guy. It's unfortunate that it's come to this where he said basically I am not supporting my software anymore, only in the sense that I can't spend time fixing everybody's sim setups. The fact that he says it's not going to almost zero, and if he sees an interesting issue, he will pursue it, an interesting and well-documented issue. But I feel his pain, and it's unfortunate. But, you know, obviously he's a single person. They are a single person trying to, you know, put the software out there, useful software that probably is, you know, more than anything was created for their own benefit, and they're releasing to the community as almost as a courtesy, for lack of a better word, as a, here, I made this, I think it's useful, you can use it. But the trouble with doing that is that people then immediately come to expect the service, and it's unfortunate when that happens, because it can end up being a huge distraction from the real job at hand, if you will. Alright, I'm just watching this here because here comes 330 climbing 340. So I feel not, I don't want to say pity, but I feel empathy with Fragtality over not wanting to provide constant support, because it just ends up being more work than it can be worth sometimes. And it's unfortunate. Anywho, I'm now just sort of looking through his GitHub at some of the issues that have been reported, because you know, you kind of wonder like what has frustrated him to the point where he's just not dealing with it anymore. Anyways, I sympathize with that, especially when you're just kind of a one-man show and it works for you, works on your computer, works on your setup, doesn't work for other people. You know, what obligation do you have, really? So there's Mock called Cruise. I do feel for him, and it doesn't sound like he's going to abandon it by any means, but he's just not going to spend a lot of time dealing with other people's issues. If you follow the instructions as they're written, it works for me. I've definitely I installed all the software he told me to. I set up the configuration as he requested, and it seems to work. So, yeah. Alright, anywho, yeah, I'm not going to sit there and read this online, but yeah, so we're on our way from, let's see here. We're on our way from San Juan to Tampa. Let me just have a quick look online here. Havana Control. I don't believe our flight plan is going to take us through any part of Havana Control, so hopefully we'll hope for some Miami at the far end. Other than that, what else have we got to talk about, guys? Just trying to think now. In terms of the sim world, I don't think there's a whole lot. Yeah, I apologize for not streaming at all last week, but I ended up only having 2 days off last week. It's amazing how quickly you can kill 2 days, even with a small amount of things to do. So I ended up opting not to do it. You know, it was what am I trying to say here? There's only so much time in a day, so I said I don't have the time or the ability to really do it last week, but this week I've got quite a few days off, so I'm definitely going to get this one stream in, maybe even a second one if we're lucky. No guarantees on that, but it would be nice. The live stream that Microsoft did last week, 2 weeks ago, they did announce some interesting stuff for the sim. The one thing that really kind of, and again, piqued my interest as a curiosity, as a there's something different, something I haven't seen too much of. Was the announcement of the MU2, the Mitsubishi MU2, as an aircraft, and they didn't even say whether or not it's going to be a separate add-on, or if it's included, if you're going to have to pay a little bit of money for it, or if it's going to be one of the included additional aircraft. But there's one that definitely piques my interest as a very unique airplane in a lot of ways. You don't see too many other airplanes like the MU2. She's a very short, stumpy aircraft. Relatively short wings, big, giant tip tanks on those wings. I remember standing up on a ladder having to fuel those wings. And oh yeah, and that's the one thing about the MU2 was you had to be very careful about fueling those tip tanks. Most of the fuel was in those tip tanks. And you'd be very careful. You could tip that airplane up on a wingtip while you were fueling it if you were not careful. So there was a fuel imbalance limit. And the ideal situation was to get two guys with two hoses and fuel both tip tanks simultaneously so the airplane wouldn't tip, because you would notice it if you were fueling it by yourself, or even if you were just fueling it and the other guy wasn't quite ready and hadn't quite started yet. You would notice the wingtip dropping as you're fueling it quite substantially. It was quite something to watch that airplane being refueled. The ideal was just fuel it both wings at the same time, and you know, with two hoses from the same truck, with two guys working two hoses at the same time, was usually the safest way to do it. If you had to do it by yourself, you would have to go back and forth, and you'd have to be careful because there was a limit, so you could only pump so many liters. I cannot even remember what the limit was, in all honesty. It was a long time ago, but I remember that. The other thing you had to be very careful of was where you put the bloody ladder, because the wingtips on that airplane are pretty tall off the ground. They're about 6 feet off the ground. You need a ladder to get to the wingtips to fuel them. So let's see here if I can find just a picture of it here, just to kind of give you guys a sense of what's yeah, anyways, here we go. So here's the there it is. Nope, not that one. That one. So that's the MU2. Big tip tanks. Most of the fuel is actually in these tip tanks. The other thing too, you have to be always careful with the ladder. Be careful that even just the edge of the ladder is not actually underneath the wingtip. As silly as that sounds, but you had to be careful of that, because the airplane would come down, and the tip tank would rest on your ladder over the course of fueling it if you weren't careful, and it could potentially cause damage. Let's just have a look at this image here, just so you can see the top of the wingtip tanks there. But yeah, there's the fuel port on the wingtip tank. So most of the fuel usually would go into the tip tanks. The the wing tanks themselves were basically auxiliary fuel if you really needed full fuel, and I believe that it flowed from the wingtip tank into the main tank. But what a unique airplane, and I do have to say, like, it's one that definitely has piqued my interest. I never flew it, but it's definitely one that piqued my interest. It's a small little aircraft. There's a couple airlines in Canada that used it as a medevac aircraft because they could modify the back door to make it wider. Because it was a high wing, it was relatively close to ground, so it's fairly easy to load. Like, the door is really quite low to the ground. You're only lifting the stretcher up about 2 or 3 feet higher than it would be otherwise to get it into the airplane. So not a whole lot of room, and what a noisy airplane too. So it was powered by the Garrett turboprop engines. I can't remember what model turboprop engines, but the Garrett turboprop engines, some of the noisiest turboprop engines you'll ever hear, because they are I believe they are a fixed turbine engine. So the on the more common one, the PT6 is probably the most common turboprop engine. The turbine that drives the fan blades is separate from the gas generator section. So there's a little mini gas generator section in there with its own set of compressors and turbines that drives the that actually has the combustion and actually creates the energy that is then extracted by the other turbine. In the PT6, they're separate. There's the gas generator, there's the power turbine, and the gas generator can turn freely on its own. It tries to turn the big turbine that turns the propeller blades, but if the propeller blades have got too much load on them, they just simply slow down. With the Garretts, it's all one geared system. So if you have too much load on the propellers, it's possible to stall your engines. It's not even like a stall, but it's actually like it's basically reversing the airflow or bogging the engine speed so low with all this extra load on the props that you could actually cause the flow in the engines to actually reverse direction. So you could get a compressor stall. So you had to be very careful with those engines. You had to be a lot more careful. The PT6, you can basically do almost whatever you want with the propellers on those engines, and the gas generator section turns separately. But the Garretts, it's all one linked. It's one single shaft linked all together. So the gas generators and the Garrett and the propellers turn at a proportional speed. Fun little airplane though. I would love to take that up and fly a little bit. I think it's going to be a really neat airplane. Two at the same time, that sounds convenient. Yeah, but think about it this way though. Yeah, fueling both tanks at the same time, that'd be great. That'd be easy. But a lot of the places you go to, there's only one fuel guy. There's only one guy. So unless the pilot gets up on the other wing and does it at the same time, you're fueling one wing at a time. So if we were busy or short-staffed or something, when I worked, like, we would often have 5 guys on shift, but there's lots of jobs to do. It's not to the point where you can normally give 2 guys to one airplane to fuel it. But this was one of those ones where you would try your best to, because it's so awkward to run back and forth. We put, like, I don't remember what the differential was. It was like 290 liters or something. So you put 290 liters in this wing, and then you get down off the ladder and you run around to the other side and you're putting the hose there. Then you go back, you get your ladder, you bring your ladder over here, you put 290 liters in this side, but then you can put, 580 liters. Is that right? 580 liters into this wing, so it's 290 plus another 290 to balance it the other way, and then run back again. But like the back and forth, it was just awkward. It was a pain in the rear if you could do it with 2 guys. And like I said, like, this airplane would tip quite substantially. This wing would be, like, if you filled this wing with 290 liters, it'd probably be about 2 feet lower than when you were done putting that 290 in there. And then so this one would be 2 feet high, then you go fill this one, it would sink down. It was quite substantial how much of a difference that made. It was quite entertaining to try and fuel this airplane. But yeah, I think it'd be a fun little airplane to fly. I definitely would like to give that one a try. I don't know how well it's going to work in the sim or how realistic it's going to be, but yeah, it's a fun little airplane. Very short, fairly big door, and they actually had a secondary door that was actually behind the main door that you could actually open even further to help get a stretcher kind of in around the corner and up the aisle. Yeah. The other thing that was really neat about the MU2 as well is that there's no ailerons. This aircraft has no ailerons. For roll control, it only has wing spoilers. So most of the airliners, you have ailerons, but you also have spoilers to aid turning the aircraft. The MU2 had no ailerons whatsoever. If you want to roll the airplane, you deploy the spoilers, which you would do it the same way. You do it through the yoke, but there's no spoilers at all. They would just simply spoil the lift on one wing to get that wing to drop. That's how you would roll an MU2, which is just it seems inefficient, but I mean, maybe that, you know, look at the size of this wing, right? Like, they wanted as much wing as possible for the flaps to aid with the short field performance of this aircraft. It's not a very big wing to begin with, so there's not a lot of room for any kind of flight controls, ailerons or flaps. So, interesting way of designing the airplane. Anyways, very different from conventional designs. But yeah, there's quite a few of them still flying around, so that obviously speaks to the longevity of the design overall. Like, there was some smart qualities to this design. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think it's an interesting aircraft. All right, I see a whole bunch of you guys watch. If you got any questions to ask, please feel free to ask. I mean, we're just tooling along in the Airbus here. The good old A320 on our way to Tampa, so we can't see too much right now. If we look off to the left, we can see some land down there. So I think we're passing. I think this is the Dominican Republic. I think right there now, if I know correctly. Let's see here. Where's my APL here? Yeah, we're passing Dominican off the left side there. We're going to pass the Dominican. We're going to pass Cuba and pretty much more or less over the Bahamas. Let's have a quick look at that weather, shall we? Because that was definitely... so let's have a look at this weather here today, because that was definitely impacting my choice of where to fly. All right, again, this is because I'm doing it outside the sim now. So yeah, go ahead and import you again from SimBrief. Let's put up that weather. And let's see what kind of weather we got here. Reflectivity, cloud cover. Do we have tops? High cloud top level. Ah, there we go. 40,000 feet, I'm guessing. So it's looking kind of pale. I'm guessing that these are into the 30s here, but we definitely had a little bit of weather we had to worry about here. So that's what I was talking about. I'll pull up the radar for a second. You can see the weather I was talking about here. I can't see. I was trying to see if we have any top reports here. So we do have convective cloud top level. That's what I'm looking for. Convective cloud top level. There we go. So that's kind of what you're looking for. 15 Zulu, which is, yeah, right now more or less. Definitely into the 30s here. Yeah, 35 into the 40s almost. So definitely good thing we're kind of going left of this route. We're not going to go over some of it. Some of it's going to be up to our altitude. So we're definitely... looks like this southerly route is going to work well to kind of keep us away from that. But that's the kind of thing you're looking for. Turbulence as well at altitudes. And I don't see too much turbulence at, oh, that's at 22. So let's go 34 is where we're at right now. Not seeing much. Not seeing much at all. Turbulence forecast is looking pretty good. Out there's some turbulence. Down there. But along our route, not much turbulence. So any turbulence we get will be associated with that convective activity there. What else have we got here? Airmets and SIGMETs too. Any airmets or SIGMETs? Here we are. Thunderstorm qualifier. Frequent thunderstorms active up to 47,000. Frequent thunderstorms observed within this box. Topped at 470, moving east at 10 knots, intensifying. So we definitely need to keep an eye on it. We're going to come into this box here as we get to Foded and Gimoni there. Got to definitely keep an eye on that. Can you pull up your jet streams? There's some jet streams up there. We don't have too many jet streams down here in the tropical latitudes. We're mostly concerned with just this air mass convective activity over Nassau. So we're just going to have to keep an eye on that, keep an eye out the window, make sure that our weather radar is turned on, and keep an eye on that as well. Because there's definitely some good stuff there as we pass Foded and Matus. Hopefully that'll kind of, we'll be able to see that in the sim as we get up there. We're quite a ways away from that right now. There's Gimoni, and I think it's after Gimoni was Foded, right? After Gimoni is Foded, so it's coming up there. But it's still about 350, 400 miles away, so it's still going to be a little bit of time before we actually get there. Yeah. Alright, so, haven't done too much with the Airbus yet, so I see a bunch of you guys watching. Not quite my normal 10, but let's go ahead and do something a little bit interesting here anyway. So I do love the fact that you can just do this. So random failures, we should have this all turned on. We do have it turned on to all failure types, so minor and major, and we do have a high number of failures happen turned on, but I find even at high, it never really triggers that much. So let's press that trigger random button and pretend like we didn't expect something to happen there. Oh my gosh, something happened. All right, and of course, the very first thing when anything happens, don't let this distract you. It is a distraction. It's an immediate distraction. Your eyes are drawn to it, and with a bit of intention, Airbus wants you to kind of be aware that something happened. But the most important thing, the golden rule for aviation, is first of all, aviate, navigate, communicate. #1 rule. So the first thing you do before you go and deal with anything that happens on that center screen, look at the PFD and make sure you know what's happening. All right, so we are in Mach, we're in alt cruise, we're in nav. Autopilot 1 is still on, auto thrust is still on. Those are probably the most important things, and these ones especially. Make sure the autopilot's on, the auto thrust is on. If certain failures happen on this aircraft, they will kick off the autopilot, and it should give you an alert, but it's very distracting. So one pilot at least should always be flying the airplane, and make sure you know what's happening. By flying the airplane doesn't necessarily mean your hands on the controls, but you are aware of what the state of the aircraft is, and one of the first things to do is check and make sure the autopilot stayed on. So the autopilot is still on. Because I'm single pilot, I still have control, but then I'll also call for ECAM actions. So flight control, ELAC 1 fault. And if we look down here, you'll see that ELAC 1 is now outlined in amber. It does indicate that it did have a fault. ELAC 1 off, then on. So we come up here, and you can usually find it by just looking for the orange light. Here are the flight controls computers. Here's ELAC 1. You can see it has a fault. Off, then on. And Airbus actually provides some guidance. If you're doing a switch off and on, if it doesn't give you a specific time frame, it's 3 seconds. If you're doing a circuit breaker reset, Airbus says 5 seconds. And that's as a minimum. You can always give yourself more. It never hurts to start the timer just because it's a little more reliable than your own personal reliability. So there's 3 seconds right there. So we'll go ahead and push that back on and see what happens. And it takes a couple seconds. The computer has to redo a self-test. It looks like the ECAM action cleared itself, so nothing else to do. ECAM action's complete. Roger. All right, and then we just need to also still consider the possible ramifications. So the fault cleared with the reset. That's not unusual. That often happens with a lot of these computers. Sometimes all these computers are constantly running self-tests in the Airbus, and if they don't pass the self-test for a certain period of time, or sometimes even if they just have a momentary power interruption, the computer may go offline. Oftentimes a simple reset will bring the computer back online, will make it pass the test. However, that being said, if it starts to happen repeatedly, you've got to certainly question it. And this is one of those really kind of interesting and sometimes almost scary things about the Airbus is the way the SOPs are written. In this case, so I'm just going to really, before I even talk about that, I'm just going to talk about the fact that we did reset the ELAC 1 correctly. There was no issue. The aircraft is flying normally. The ELAC 1 came on, so we need to just consider, do we have a time or no time scenario? We have a time scenario. In fact, we really barely have a scenario because it came back on. And so we can continue, divert, or go back. There really seems to be no reason not to continue. The ELAC 1 reset successfully. We're almost halfway there. Our ETP is in about 250 miles, but we're almost halfway there, so I don't see any reason to turn back or divert. So in this case, for the most part, it's a paper exercise at this point. So you could go into your, well, you could, but you absolutely should go into your ATSU and communicate. So we can't actually do it, but what you would do is usually there's a way to send messages. You can either send a message to your dispatcher, or probably the more appropriate thing is just to send a message directly to maintenance control, because usually most systems are set up such that if you send a message to almost any of the other stations, the dispatcher will also see it anyways. It will also pop up on the dispatcher station, not as addressed to them, but as a just so you know the airplane communicated this. So, and that will then also cover your requirement to report everything to dispatch, because anything that happens during a flight on an airline, you have to report to dispatch, because it's a code dispatch authority operation. At the end of the day, the captain has the ultimate authority, but the captain and the dispatcher are supposed to work together to ensure that the flight is completed safely. So anything that does happen, the dispatcher should be made aware of. So by sending a message to maintenance, and what we usually say is ECAM ELAC 1 fault, ECAM reset carried out successfully, ELAC 1 fault message cleared. something to that effect, and then you'd write the exact same thing in the journey log as well. So even though the message cleared, always write it down, because it could be the beginning of a trend. If the same snags come up over and over again, that could be the indication that something's not quite right with that computer or with its connectors or something. So everything must be logged in an aircraft, just in case it is the indication of a trend. If it only happens once, okay, it was a little fluke, a little power loss, a little some little glitch, some bit flipped it wasn't supposed to, it's fine. But if like I said, it could be the beginning of a trend. And that brings up a really interesting accident that happened a while ago. And I cannot even remember the airline. Let's see here if I can find it really quickly. I think it's this one. Hold on, let me just quickly read through this. Yes, so if you're interested in it, it was the Indonesia AirAsia flight 8501. And this is a really interesting accident for some of the stuff that occurred and the way it was dealt with, both by the crew and the company. So this was back in 2014, and it was an A320 that departed, and let's see, where did they depart? I know it was in Indonesia, so they departed Juanda International Airport on their way to Singapore Changi, I'm honestly not sure. Singapore Airport, so not a very long flight, 1 hour, 2 hour flight. It's not a particularly long flight. And basically what happened was they leveled off in cruise, and then they got an ECAM, a flight computer failure. It was a FAC. Yeah, it was basically dual FAC failures, which is an interesting failure in and of itself. But the dual FAC failure went, so the FACs flicked off, and they reset them successfully. The ECAM message went away, and then about 2 or 3 minutes later, it came up again. And the Airbus SOP and most airlines SOP conform to this, is that if it shows up on ECAM, you do it. If the reset's successful, perfect. If it shows up again, you do it again, and that's basically the SOP. Is you keep on doing it, and it makes sense on a certain level, but sometimes you just have to sort of say, because it basically what happened was it started happening more and more frequently. So I think it happened 6 or 7 times, and it was it was getting to the point where it was less than a minute. Yeah, it was 4 times, but the first time it's like 5 minutes apart, then the second time is like the second time is like, okay, 2 minutes apart, and then like 1 minute. You can understand the frustration level of this crew, that it keeps on performing the same ECAM reset, and it keeps working for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then it stops working. It works long enough to reset the ECAM, and then the ECAM comes up again, and the Airbus SOP says you're supposed to reset it again, and so it kept on happening, and the crew was obviously getting frustrated with this. So this had apparently also happened on the ground, I don't think that day, but the day before, on a previous flight, the captain had watched the maintenance engineers come in and reset not the switches for the FAC, but the circuit breakers, which I don't know where they are, but wherever they are, he'd watched them reset the FAC circuit breakers to clear the fault on the ground on a previous occasion on this same aircraft, on the same fin. So the 4th time it happened, instead of the switches being reset, the circuit breakers were reset, which was not what the ECAM said to do. And if you look in the QRH, there's a list of approved resets that you can do in the Airbus in-flight. This was not on the list of approved resets. So this was something that the captain was doing just because he'd seen a maintenance engineer do it before. What he was unaware of, and one of the things that came out of this investigation was that if you do that circuit breaker reset, you then still have to power the switches off and on to make the FACs reboot. So power will go back to the FACs, but they won't reboot until you cycle the switch off and on again after you cycle the circuit breaker. The captain did not know that, because he was just simply doing what he'd seen a maintenance engineer do before, but he didn't realize the importance of actually resetting the switch again. So that created that was a huge problem in and of itself. The accident was then caused by the fact that the autopilot, because the facts were off, disconnected, and the first officer, who happened to be flying while the captain was standing up resetting circuit breakers on the back panel, put the aircraft initially into a climb, and then ended up stalling the aircraft. Just the fact that he did that was just sort of blew my mind, but I can understand it to a degree, because when you're doing a circuit breaker reset, you kind of want both pilots to have their eyes on the circuit breaker to make sure that the correct circuit breaker is being reset. So the captain's standing up here, the FO is turned around, so he's looking at it as well. Nobody's actually flying the airplane, and the length of time that nobody was flying the airplane was kind of somewhat determined from the flight data recorder. Was actually quite a substantial period of time. But yeah, he ended up, the FO ended up overreacting. Because the FAT computers disconnected not only the autopilot and the auto throttle, and also changed from normal to alternate law. So the aircraft rolled, and by the time the first officer reacted to it, the airplane had rolled already to 54 degrees. It was in a 54-degree bank before the first officer began to react to it. So he probably had his hands on the controls, but he was turned around and was not even realizing he was potentially putting input on the controls, or maybe the airplane rolled naturally on its own without his input. It shouldn't do that in alternate law, but it should require some input. So he must have had some pressure. He had his hand just a little bit on it while he was turned around looking at the circuit breaker. But it took a substantial amount of time before they realized that they were in a substantial roll. He ended up over-controlling, pulled the airplane into a very steep bank at an altitude of 32,000, and in less than 60 seconds, he climbed the airplane from 32,000 to 38,500 feet. Caused the aircraft to enter a stall, and began to descend at rates of up to 20,000 feet per minute. So from the time of the FAC reset, the FAC circuit breakers were reset at 6 minutes and 16 seconds. So at 6 a.m., 6:16 at 45 seconds, and it was less than 4 minutes later that the aircraft impacted the ocean. It impacted the ocean at in an aerodynamic stall with descent rates, as I said, of up to 20,000 feet per minute. It's a horrible accident to read about, but it really, the start of it is kind of so innocuous and yet not unexpected. Because the pilots kind of did what they were trained to do to a certain point, and then they got frustrated with it because it was not having an impact, but the SOPs said they had to keep on doing it as long as that ECAM kept coming up. So what if this ECAM comes up every 10 seconds and then goes away, and then comes up every 10 seconds? Are you supposed to literally have someone reach up there and press that button off and on all day for the rest of the flight every 10 seconds? Not that I condone what they did per se in making up their own procedure, but I understand their search for some kind of an alternative procedure to get rid of that ECAM, because a repetitive ECAM that comes up over and over again, successfully resets but comes up over and over again, can be a huge distraction. You begin to disregard it, you begin to disregard the information it's providing, and then if another different ECAM comes up, you keep on reacting the same way you did before, where you just give it less and less attention and value every time the ECAM comes up, because it keeps doing it. So I feel in a lot of ways for the situation these guys were in. The trouble with this thing is that it was a known repeated defect on this aircraft, on this particular airplane. It had come up. I can't even remember how many times, but it literally had come up probably 30 or 40 or 50 times in the previous month, and most of the time it had been reset on the ground successfully. And because it was reset successfully, it was never considered a snag. It was probably logged, but it was never considered a snag such that it was going to be a recurring snag. As long as the reset works, it's fine. What they found in the end of the day was that there was a... Oh, here it is. The plane's maintenance records showed that this warning had been sent 23 times over the previous year, but was always reset, was never further investigated. What they eventually found when they investigated the accident was that there was one of the solder joints on the computer was found to be a little bit cracked, and so it was getting an intermittent signal. It would sometimes work, it would sometimes not work. It was most of the time working, but sometimes it would stop working. One solder joint on one circuit board in this airplane, was basically the instigating cause of this accident, but it happened 23 times over the previous year, including quite a few times the previous month. The same captain had flown this airplane and had seen this already happen a couple times a month, and it was just one of those like, it just happens on this airplane, don't worry about it, glitches. So yeah, it's interesting. The report did not specifically conclude that pilot error caused the crash, while detailing the chain of events leading to the loss of 8501. Yeah, they said that the malfunction should not have led to a total loss of control had they followed the recommended procedures. So there was some perhaps lack of flying skills, lack of understanding, lack of high altitude flying skills, but certainly the technical defect with the airplane was one of the big instigating factors. How it was dealt with was another situation, and you see this often in airplanes, these intermittent failures that just happen every once in a while. Every second or third flight this happens. Most of the airlines I've flown for have a rule about this, and for what's called a recurring defect, and that's why everything has to be logged, because if it comes up multiple times it can be considered a recurring defect. Even if the resets fix it, the mechanics start to go and search for an actual underlying problem. It could be that a computer is perhaps on its way out or failing, or there's a loose connection or something. And I forget what the rules are. It varies from airline to airline, but generally it's anything like if the same defect occurs 3 times within the previous 10 flights or 10 days or something like that. Usually the threshold is 3. Once is just a fluke, 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a definite pattern. And the time frame, again, it will vary from airline to airline, but generally you're looking at something like that. In the previous 10 legs or 10 days or something like that, if you see the same defect come up 3 times, even if the resets are successful, they'll start to actually investigate the component and say there's got to be something going on here. If we're getting a repeated fault with this, there's something not quite right. It shouldn't be bringing up repeated faults. So that's something that probably should have happened to this AirAsia Airbus. It came up multiple times over the previous year. Shouldn't have caused an accident. Should have caused perhaps degraded flight control performance and degraded information, but it should not have caused an accident per se. But it definitely was an instigating factor in this accident. And I just, again, I feel the pity of these guys. I feel sympathy for these guys, not pity, but sympathy with these guys for trying to deal with this ECAN that just came up over and over again. It's like, what do you do when it just keeps coming up and it resets? But like if you're on a 5-hour flight, it comes up every 5 minutes for the next 5 hours. Oh my God, you're going to hate it. It makes me think of another particular occasion that happened to me when I was flying an unpressurized ferry flight in a Dash 8 years and years ago. The aircraft had been involved in an incident. It had some damage to the tail area, and we were ferrying it to a maintenance base to have a permanent repair made to the aircraft. It had been evaluated, determined it was safe for at least a ferry flight, but what the recommendation was that the flight be performed unpressurized, which was fine. We elected to fly that day at 10,000 feet. It was a westbound flight, so we elected to fly the airplane at 10,000 feet for the 2-hour flight to the maintenance base, where a permanent repair would be carried out. It was okay for about the first half hour. Then about a half hour into the flight, as we were flying westbound, the altimeter setting was slowly falling. It was above standard from our departure point, and then it was slowly falling as we headed westward. And what started to happen then, of course, as that happened, was we weren't allowed to pressurize the airplane. We had to run with the outflow valve full open. Was that we started triggering cabin pressure warnings, and on that particular aircraft, and I think on most aircraft, it was a red warning light that would trigger on the Dash 8, and you'd see cabin press. And the thing was that we were just sort of, there's just a little bit of light turbulence, so we're just sort of bobbing along, just up and down a little bit, and so you get it to go off, and you press cabin press, you look at it, say cabin press, and be like, that is perfectly acceptable because the aircraft is unpressurized. We know it's running at 10,000 foot pressure altitude, and we can breathe successfully at 10,000 foot pressure altitude without too much issue. And so we would, say that is acceptable, and we would not disregard it, but say that there's a reason for that's come on, and it's not an emergency because we're not at a pressurized altitude of 20,000 feet. And then we'd go down a little bit, and it would go off, and then we'd come back up again, it would go on again. And it started to happen more and more frequently, where we'd go down and we'd come on and it would trigger again and again and again and again, and you'd reset the warning and you'd reset the warning and reset the warning. And after about 5 minutes of this, I looked at the FO and I said, this is stupid. We're going to go down to 8,000 feet, because what's going to happen is that something serious is going to happen, and we're just going to go reset, 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 you know, we're going to lose that oil pressure on an engine. We're not going to even notice it because we're being conditioned very quickly to just reset that red warning light over and over and over again and barely even take a look at it and not react to it. So we opted to go back down. We opted to burn a little more fuel and go down to 8,000 feet for the remainder of the flight, just to make sure we didn't set that off, because it's exactly what was going to happen. Was we were going to just, something major was going to happen, and we were going to ignore it because we just kept on pressing this red reset button over and over and over and over again for the cabin press warning. So you've got to be very careful how you condition yourself in this business, because you can and you will fall for those things. And I have fallen for them. Other people have fallen for them. You've got to make sure that you don't just make this a habit. That there's got to be a reason why you do what you do, and it's not, I'm just resetting it just because. And it seems to be, and it's funny, but like the master warning, the master caution, almost seem to be like a trigger in the rat race. It's like, which of the two pilots can press the reset button faster, and which of them can press it first. It's like, it's not the end of the world if you don't press it in the first 5 seconds after it comes up. It'll keep the audio warning going, but you don't want to have something crazy happen. Just the other day, we actually departed, and we had, let's see here, at 400 feet just after departure, we had an ECAM. We had an amber caution light come up, and we had an ECAM come up. And what it ended up being was the FO. It was FO pitot heat, FO static heat, and FO probe heat. All three messages came up on the ECAM briefly after takeoff, starting at about 400 feet. And I kind of looked down at it. I happened to be the pilot flying that day. I kind of looked down at it and said, yeah, okay. It's not a huge deal. And I even verbalized it out loud. I said, okay, we're at 400 feet. It's a caution ECAM. We're not even going to bother dealing with it till we have reached 1,000 feet, accelerated, and cleaned up the airplane. And the captain acknowledged that, said, yep, that sounds good. And, you know, maybe 10 or 15 seconds later, I reached up and actually reset the caution light. It was not a big deal. We saw what it was. It was not a huge issue. You want to reset it so it's ready for next things, but you don't need to be like press it instantly. And it seems like sometimes, especially in the simulator, it's like, how fast can you press the caution light is the only game we're playing. It's not what does it mean, what is the implication, what is the actual failure. It's just how fast can you press that caution light and reset it. And sometimes I think we're just conditioned like dogs to just press those reset lights. At the end of the day, I planned to hand fly the departure to about 10,000 feet. As we got into above 1,000 feet, pitched down, started accelerating. I said, all right, so we got some stuff to deal with. I'm going to put the autopilot on so we don't have to worry about who's flying the airplane, and I can focus more on just the actual management of the airplane. You can read the ECAMs. By the time we even got the flaps up, the ECAMs had gone away. So it was some kind of minor glitch that had momentarily set all the probe heats for some reason were not on. Maybe for a second it thought it was too cold. It was a pretty warm day, so it was not. They didn't necessarily need to be on. For whatever reason, they came on briefly. It reset itself before we even got a chance to deal with it. By the time we got to acceleration altitude, I looked down, it was all dead, and everything was gone. So it wasn't a big deal, but sometimes you just gotta make sure you're taking some positive time to think about the actions you're taking. Make sure that they're sensible for the situation. Make sure that you're not just doing things instinctively or because you've done it 1,000 ways before. And that's one of those big things. It's like, oh, I've seen this 1,000 times before. There's just don't worry about it, do this. Sometimes it can be a serious incident that's happening that you're not even aware of. I can think of a few other cases. There was another great case of, that didn't actually happen to me, but it was a report that was sent to all the employees at our company about a similar type aircraft back when I was flying the Embraer. It was different airlines Embraers that they had a serious incident that was initially dismissed as being almost a non-issue. And in this, and again, it comes down to, pilots are conditioned to react to certain stimuli in a certain way, and if you tell them to react a certain way enough times, they'll just keep doing it the same way all the time. So in this particular incident, it was an aircraft that was cruising on about an hour and a half flight, and somewhere about halfway through the cruise, they suddenly had a major electrical failure. They lost one of their major buses. I honestly can't remember what bus it was. This is a long time ago. It was probably 5 years or more ago when I read this report. But they lost one of their major electrical buses. So they pulled out the QRH. They did the reset. It didn't work initially, but then after about 10 minutes, the bus came back on its own, which is very kind of a little bit odd. you know, they had been in contact with maintenance. I can't remember if maintenance suggested a second reset or not, but eventually most of the systems came back online on their own. They continued on to the destination. Maintenance met them at the destination. What maintenance discovered when they actually went to investigate the bus fault was, it made the hair on my neck tingle. It even makes the hair on my neck stand up now. What they discovered was that there had actually been an in-flight fire that nobody knew about in the avionics, or partly in the avionics bay. There had been an in-flight fire, but the way the fire had propagated, it had triggered that bus fault. When that bus faulted, it took off the smoke detection for the avionics bay. It took down the recirculation fans, which recirculated the air out of the avionics bay, which would have circulated smoke into the rest of the cabin, potentially alerting people to the fact that there was a fire. So because these two key indicators were lost, the crew had no idea. And on the Embraer, ask anyone who's ever flown an Embraer. If something doesn't work right, you just reset it and try again. Try turning it off and on again. Even worse than the Airbus. Turn it off, turn it on again. If it doesn't work after you turn it off, turn it on again. Okay, then make a snag. Okay, then call maintenance. But pilots are conditioned in the Embraer to just reset it. If it doesn't work, reset it, and then try it again. And you do it like hundreds and thousands of times over the course of a career on an Embraer. It just becomes second nature. Yeah, it's fine. Just do a reset. It'll probably come back up when you reset it. Those pilots did exactly what they had been conditioned to do by years and years of training and repeated resets. And in this case, there was actually a very serious incident on the aircraft that was completely masked by the failure. And nobody, I think, in any way faults the pilots for this, because they did exactly what they've been trained to do. And as an Embraer pilot myself, like, I had been trained to do the exact same thing, and I thought to myself, I would have done the exact same thing these guys did. I would not have done a single thing differently, because that's the way we were conditioned to operate that airplane. Would never have even thought to ask, is there a serious reason why this happened? Because there's electrical resets all the time. There's glitches all the time on those airplanes, and you just do a reset, and boom, you bring it back. So I understand exactly their line of thought, exactly why they acted the way they acted, because I would have done the same thing. And that was the reason why we were sent this report. Was our chief pilot at the time really wanted us to kind of be aware of this, and not just apply the procedures blindly, but think, what are the possibilities? What is the scenarios that could be happening? It probably is a computer glitch. It probably is. What if it's not? What if it's that one day out of 1,000 where it's not a computer glitch, but there's something much more seriously wrong going on with the airplane, and you're not even aware of it because you're just resetting things continuously because that's what you're trained to do? It was certainly a very eye-opening report when I read it. It made me sort of change some of the way I thought about some of the things that I did on the airplane. So it was really good in that sense. It was unfortunate that it happened. It was good that it didn't lead to a serious to the destruction of the airplane. The fire eventually extinguished itself, and it landed safely. Nobody was even injured. Nobody's aware that anything happened. But just to think of how that scenario could have played out a different way is more than a little frightening. Anywho, now that I've bored all my viewers to death here, nothing much happened on that one. That's the one thing I find frustrated with the Fenix, is that it seems to favor the minor failures much more than the major failures. If you try to insert a random failure, it seems like at least 50 to 60% of the time it's going to be a resettable computer fault. You press the button, you turn it off, you turn it on again, it goes away. Like, there's so many faults buried in the system, and yet it seems that it's always, defaulting back to the same couple of failures. There's so many failures that could be in the system here. You can have hydraulic failures, you can have hydraulic leaks, pump failures, you can have the landing gear fail to go down, you could have brake system failures, tire failures, all sorts of things. And yet, it seems to favor these FAC failures more than anything else. Bleed valves stuck, hot air valves failures, low temperatures, bleed computer failures, all sorts of stuff. It seems to favor these flight control FAC faults, SEC faults, ELAC faults more than anything else. That's the one that seems to fault over and over and over again. You can even lose a CVR, you can lose an FWC, a DMC, DCDUs. Like, you can lose all sorts of things. And yet it seems to just always go to these resettable ELAC and SEC faults. ELAC 1, ELAC 2. It seems to pick this group of 5, or this group of 5 faults more than any other, and I don't know why. It's not that they're terrible faults, and they're definitely very minor faults, not much impact on the operation overall, but I would like to see something much more serious fail on this aircraft. So. Yeah. Anyways, if we get more viewers again, maybe we'll try a second failure, see if it'll fail that computer again or something. But it feels like yeah, it never seems to do major failures. I'm hoping for some random major failure at some point. We may just have to one day fail something major on our own. All right, so we were supposed to cruise at 36. Let's have a quick look at the prog page here. So our max now is 37.1. Most people, you'll find when they fly the Airbus, tend to give some margin to this value, because this value, if you go to 37 right now, you're going to have a very small coffin corner. You're going to have maybe plus or minus 5 knots. Most people tend to want to give this at least 1,000-foot margin. So now that it's 37.1, I'm okay with climbing to 36. Given that there's no ATC online still, Havana Center is still there, but nobody. But Miami Center is online. Miami Center is online. We are going to go through Miami's airspace. I don't think they do arrivals in Tampa. I feel like that's Jacksonville. But we will have coverage up the coast at least. Ah, that is wonderful. We do have some morning ATC, and the guy's only been online for 26 minutes, so it's a good chance he's going to be still online when we get there. He, she, I'm assuming he, in the VATSIM world. I shouldn't assume this, but Shane Friedman, yeah, I'm going to say he. All right, so 360 is set, and we've got climb and alt blue. All right. The nice thing is today is not an ETOPS flight because we're relatively close to airports all the time here. We may not be directly sailing over them, but definitely we're never more than about 30 minutes if we were at any point in time to make a left turn. So we're over Turks and Caicos right now. There's probably even some airports here in Turks and Caicos, but if or we can make a left turn and go to the Dominican, Haiti, or even Cuba as we go by. I don't know how welcome JetBlue is in Cuba these days, but if the airplane's on fire or something like that, we can definitely do that. Or even the Bahamas, we're going to go sailing over the Bahamas as well. So definitely lots of places to stop if we need to. And even now, as we're coming up to Foded, where's Foded? Foded is the next waypoint. It's about just under 100 miles up ahead. Not seeing much yet in terms of weather out there. It looks pretty clear. So sometimes Microsoft does sometimes Flight Simulator does a good job of matching the real world, sometimes not. Sometimes the weather just doesn't seem to show up, the convective weather. So it'll be interesting to see if we see much, but honestly, I don't think we're going to, because it looks, honestly, almost sky clear in that direction. And we do have live weather, I'm pretty sure. Let's just double check. MSFS weather. We do have live weather turned on, absolutely. We can actually pull up the matters we want to, we don't need to. But we do have live weather turned on, so it's not a question of live weather. That's 35, climbing 36. It's just it's not being generated in the sim for some reason. Anywho, yeah, that was some good conversation topics. I'm just trying to think what else. I feel like I always have some stuff to talk about, but nothing much recently. Yeah, so one other thing that I was going to kind of talk about, because I really enjoyed this, and I got a super good kick out of this. I found this, pardon me, this really neat game that I started playing. And I found it very compelling. I'm a bit of a nerd. It may come as a shock to some of you guys watching the channel, but I am a bit of a nerd. But it is a really neat game that's available on Steam, and it's called Turing Complete. So what it is, Turing Complete, is a really, really neat game that I really kind of got a kick out of. It definitely kept me occupied for quite a few hours. Basically, the idea is you have to build a computer from scratch. The premise of the game, and it's really kind of cute, is that you're abducted by aliens, and in order to prove that you're smart, that your species is smart enough, you have to build a computer for them. And they step you right through it, right through all the things. So starting with nothing but just a NAND gate and some wire leads. JJW554, yo. So starting with just initially just with one single NAND gate and a couple of wire leads, you start building various components of your computer. So you start with just the one basic gate, the NAND gate. From that, you build a NOR gate, AND gate, OR gate, XOR gate. You kind of keep moving through that. Then you start actually building various things. So you actually start building the logic to actually build your own arithmetic logic unit, your own adders, your own memory registers, your own counters. And eventually, at the culmination, you build your own small CPU. So this is just a kind of an intermediate step you can kind of see in this this diagram right here. I'm not even sure what this one is here. This is what this is. I think this is an 8-bit memory register. So each of these are the individual 8 bits that are remembered until the next time, and then output it. So input sent to the various bits, and then output it. So at the end of the sort of the main storyline of the game, if you will, you end up building your own 8-bit computer that you can actually program using your own assembly language, using actual bits, and you can actually watch it run, watch the various information flow around the computer stored in various locations, and actually build a computer. I thought it was really neat because I've always, my father grew up, he worked in computers, so I've kind of always had like an interest in computers, and I've always kind of understood them more from the software side, from how to run a computer, how to install a game on a computer. I remember 5¼ inch discs, floppy disks, and running games off 5¼ inch discs. When we got our first hard drive, it was like 20 megabytes. Like, oh my god, like what are you ever going to do with that much space, right? Pretty sure Bill Gates said the same thing once upon a time. But I've always, and I have the basic idea of how the computer works on the inside, but when you got into the nitty-gritty of how the various gates worked and how memory and registers and all that sort of stuff worked, it was sort of like a black box. It's like, yeah, the processor takes in the information I tell it to, and it outputs something useful for me. This was really a neat game for me to really kind of just get into the weeds of how the processor actually sends information around, how it actually processes information. And like I said, like at the end of the main game, you've basically built yourself an 8-bit processor that you can then use to run various tasks. So the first task was super simple. I can't even remember what the first task was. But then the second task I had to teach the computer to do was, or program my computer, my 8-bit computer to do, was to basically do a multiplication problem. And my computer couldn't even do multiplication. It could do addition, subtraction, the various logic gates, and it could count. And that was basically it. So I had to use it. I had to enable a counter in it and to do some basic multiplication. It seems very simple on its face, but when you're trying to use the most basic building blocks to build these things, it actually ends up being quite a lengthy process. But like I said, this is a super fun game. If you ever get a chance to pick this up, it's about $20. It's it's not the cheapest game in the world, but it's kind of fun as a puzzle game, especially. And I'm trying to get my kids to play it. I really, really want my kids to play because I really think it's a great way to kind of learn how computers work on the inside, even if they don't get all of it. I would love them to try and play it a little bit and kind of try and get at least a little bit of that. But really neat game. Just trying to think if I can. I don't want to show the YouTube video because I'll usually get a copyright strike if I do that. So just show some other images of just kind of how the whole game plays out. So let's see if I can just find some images of this. But yeah, so just to that was one fairly simple level. But like you get towards the end, and this is the kind of thing you built. Built this whole computer with its own memory register, all the different input and output lines, and then the nice thing is that when you're done with that, this game has a sandbox mode where you can build basically whatever you want. So people have built various things. They've actually built real working worm games on their basic 8-bit processors. There's somebody out there who's built a Tetris game. There's somebody who actually built like I think this is it. I think this is a replica of the 8008 microprocessor. So this guy actually rebuilt the individual components, and each of these kind of big blue boxes is actually an individual component. Then you can go in there and you can actually wire the individual components on the inside, but then to kind of make make it so it's not overly complicated, you can then reuse like this. Like I think this is the ALU, the arithmetic and logic unit. You can build that and then you can reuse it over and over again in different circuits and different computers. So you kind of start at the most basic level and kind of start to zoom out. And like I said, like people have built, like this is basically almost a full replica of the 8008 processor. It's actually not quite accurate because the wire leads that are drawn on the screen are actually wider than they would be in reality, where they'd only be a couple of nanometers across. But the layout is correct, the basic function of the chip is correct, so you can actually rebuild these classical chips. I thought it was a really neat game. For anyone who's at all interested in computers, I thought it was, I got a lot of fun out of it. It's kind of a bit of a puzzle game as you're trying to solve these things and do some of these tasks, put them together, but you're also just building the computer the whole time. I just thought it was a really neat game. If you ever get a chance, it's called Turing Complete. Like I said, $20. It's, and especially I think trying to teach other people how computers work, you know, kids especially, because it's really fun. It's really the alien's kind of a little bit sarcastic and funny. That's trying to teach you how to build this computer. It is quite colorful, so it makes it quite easy to kind of keep track of stuff. But yeah, it comes down to that basic logic of how a computer functions. I thought it was a really neat game. I've definitely put a couple of hours into it now. I'm not even sure. I guess Steve will probably tell me how many hours I've put into it, but I've only had it for about a week, and I put 8 hours into it so far. It took me about 8 hours. It took me probably about 7 hours to build that computer. It took me 1 hour to just figure out how to program.
1604102 heavy, thank you.
It took me probably about 7 hours just to figure, or 7 hours to build my computer, an hour to figure out how to program the multiplication in it. Just because I made a couple of mistakes, a couple of bad assumptions, and then there's actually quite a lot of help out there. There's quite a lot of people that played this game that got into it, and there's some help for how to write an efficient assembly language out there, because most of the steps, the program is very good at kind of walking you through, and like it won't solve the problems for you, but it gives you lots of useful hints. And the steps are usually pretty small that you can kind of figure out the next step pretty quickly and easily. But when it came to writing the assembly language, it was it sort of dumped you a little bit at that point. You sort of, okay, now write something. You can either write it as a series of ones and zeros, or you can come up with pseudonyms for the various bit codes you're using to make it more human readable, instead of 6-9 instead of you know, the 6-9 being instruction. It's actually, that's the instruction for subtraction. So you can either write 6-9 or you can write subtraction. It's a lot easier to write subtraction, and then you actually understand what the code is trying to do at each step of the way. So it's really neat because you can step through each step of the program as it's running, each clock tick, and see where the information is, where it's gone, where you've gone awry. Because I did have a couple of mistakes in my CPU that I discovered out over time. It's like, oh, I'm making assumptions about certain things. I'm not wiring things correctly. You know, part of the joy of it is trying to also do things efficiently. You know, make things organized, not just make it a jumble of spaghetti, but how do you make it organized so that you can easily find your mistakes, fix them. And that was definitely a bit of a problem. Was just the organization level of it. So a couple of the levels, you're very space limited, so you have to build a certain function, but you have to do it in a very small square. So how do you know, organize stuff efficiently that it fits within that square and doesn't, you know, if you had an unlimited amount of space, unlimited amount of components, you can do pretty much anything. But how do you make it small and efficient so that it doesn't use too much energy, it's not wasting time transmitting stuff around? It's a really, really neat little game, and I'm trying to get my kids to play it. They're not falling for it right now. I'm going to keep pushing them, because I think it just kind of, you know, in this world where like everything is reliant on chips, where everything is a computer chip of some kind. You know, even the most simple devices are probably running on some kind of computer chip. I look up on my webcam up here. My webcam is probably it's got its own separate little computer chips in there. My track IR's got some separate computer chips in there. Of course, the computer itself, but even the monitor's got a separate chip. I feel like coding will be a helpful skill in the future, and it's funny that is actually an interesting point to make. There's some people who are going to start to disagree with you now, and 5 years ago, 100% coding. The kids have been learning coding for a while. My youngest daughter, actually, I'll toot my own horn here, and toot my family's own horn, but man, she is actually really quite good at coding. She's got that computer brain. She's been playing with the Scratch programming language for quite a few years now. and so she's gotten quite good with it. So she actually went to a birthday party like 2 weeks ago at a place called Code Ninjas, which, if you're not familiar with it, Code Ninjas is basically it's a franchise where they teach coding courses to kids. It's targeted to kids. They teach coding courses. They have summer camps or after school programs or whatever, where they teach coding and computer skills to kids. So they had a birthday party there. Her one friend had a birthday party there, and they had to do, part of the party was, of course, they got to play around on the computers, but they also had a coding challenge they had to do. And she was done it like so fast, and everyone else was like looking over and copying her, and like even the instructors were like, wow, she was on that. She got through the task like super quick. Like she impressed even all the instructors at the at Code Ninjas, which made me quite proud. Because it can be a very useful skill, and even if you're not actually doing coding, to think like a coder. Just thinking like a coder just teaches you logic. How do you solve your problems logically? So I was quite proud of that, but I'm trying to get her into this game just to kind of learn not just the software side, but understand a little bit about what the computer's doing, because if you can understand what computers are trying to do, you can probably make more efficient code. Nowadays, you don't have to necessarily make efficient code. Computers run very fast. There's lots of fast processors, so you can make pretty sloppy, lousy code that does what you need to do without being efficient about it. If you're writing a game or something very graphically intense, then of course efficiency is important. But if you're writing some more basic tasks, like business-related tasks, or spreadsheets or data processing, speed is usually not imperative. You can usually get away with some pretty sloppy coding. And there's even people who say that coding is no longer the career guarantee it used to be. 5 years ago, you went to computer science to learn coding. Guaranteed, you're going to get a great paying job right out of university. All these companies are going to hire you. The Googles and the Metas, and Amazon, and all these other juggernauts are going to hire thousands, tens of thousands of software programmers to create their systems. Now with the advent of AI,
American 914 Alpha to set and maintain 2000.
Am I not on Unicom?
JetBlue 24785, Miami Center, runway 8 right, taxi via Mike.
8 right, taxi via Mike, 2435.
American 914 Alpha, you're 5 miles from the final approach fix, maintain 2000, will establish localizer, cleared ILS, runway 8 right approach.
That's 20.
American 814, climb and maintain level 350.
But I never
Traffic
did a 10 up.
646, climb and maintain level 370.
Up the side of 370, traffic 646.
Because that's not the frequency he's supposed to be on, but it seems to be splashing over. Or is there somebody else online? Because he says Miami, but he seems to be transmitting on a secondary frequency, because I'm getting some splash over on a different frequency there. So I switched to 21.5. Yeah, I need to write your own software to solve a problem to make dollars. Yeah, well, that's just it. But certainly from a kind of almost a blue collar level, where it's just like you're just helping mass produce software, programmers are not really as necessary as they were even 5 years ago. Supposedly AI is going to allow people to say, hey, I want software that does this, and the AI will create that software. Will it necessarily be efficient? It may or may not, depending on how the AI thinks and how the AI wants to set it up. It may be that you can do some analysis and find a better way to do it, but definitely, yeah, it feels like all of a sudden coding may not be the ultimate, like, we'll need millions of these people job it was 5 years ago. But that being said, I mean, there's something to be said for a good programmer. And the one example that kind of really comes to mind, and just sort of blew my mind when I read about this, was Chris Sawyer, who anyone who's probably played video games in the last 20 years probably knows who he is. He's been the creator of some pretty successful games over the years. Harkening back to Roller Coaster Tycoon and Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, he also did, I'm pretty sure he also wrote the original Transport Tycoon, and Locomotion, one of its, not the sequel, but definitely it's sort of its spiritual sequel anyways. He's written all sorts of like various games like this over the years, but the one thing that impressed me, and I didn't know this, and I only read about it a couple of years ago, was that Roller Coaster Tycoon was actually written in assembly language in order to make sure that he had a package that ran extremely efficiently and was able to handle a fairly large amount of information on what were at the time fairly rudimentary computers. He actually wrote Roller Coaster Tycoon using assembly language, not using any higher level programming languages like even C or anything like that, but actually went right down to the bottom, right into assembly, and said, how can I write this to be the most efficient game that I can? Which is quite astonishing to do with a game of that complicated level. To be able to be able to read assembly and be able to think far enough into assembly language that you can solve complex problems with only the most basic commands. It really was incredibly well executed. It's not something that you're going to likely to see too often these days. But yeah, that is, at least that's the story, that's the legend, is that Roller Coaster Tycoon was originally written only in assembly language and not in any higher level programming language than that, which is quite, again, like I said, is quite something to think about. Like it's a very low level programming language. It really, and to be able to kind of really move up to abstract concepts with it is quite impressive. Let's see if I can find it here. Yeah. Chris Sawyer's website himself, anyways, is certainly the claim. Which tools were used to develop Roller Coaster Tycoon? The game was written and compiled using MS Macro Assembler version 6.11c, MS Visual C v5 version, MS DirectX 5 SDK plus sort of custom written tools. What language was Roller Coaster Tycoon programmed in? It's 99% written in x86 assembler machine code, with a small amount of C code used to interface to MS Windows and DirectX. So it just kind of blows the mind to think that he's programming in that the majority of the game in that low level. That's it. I'm writing my next AI in MS-DOS. I love it. But yeah, like you got to think like that is a very that's a very dedicated way to write a game. That's for sure. To write a game in assembly language. You know, when there's other higher level alternatives available that allow you to focus more on the spend more time focused on the graphics and how does it play and how does it work. But to, you know, at the time, like he wrote, I think a large portion of it was written in assembly was just to make sure it ran efficiently, because the trouble with the higher end programming languages is they're not always the most efficient. They may use processes that will cover more options, will allow, you know, what am I trying to say here? They may not make the most efficient use of the resources available, because they may leave room for other options around the resources. Whereas if you're getting right down to assembly, you are directly controlling exactly how the memory is distributed, exactly how the addition and then subtraction and all the individual calculations are handled. You're right down there at the very bottom, most basic level. The whole idea of the higher programming languages is it does the basic stuff for you and allows you to focus more on the conceptual end of the game. But to work at both ends of that takes a lot of dedication. There's a guy who really was dedicated to his craft, to his art, and you don't see that a lot anymore. You don't see all that many games that are produced by one person. I'm pretty sure that actually Turing Complete was produced by one person, but you don't see that many games that are produced by one person. Because it kind of brings up the other thing that I'm reading right now too. There's another book that I read. I actually found this book and I gave it to my father, and then he read it, and then he ggave it to me to read as well. I didn't intend for him to give it back, but I'm enjoying it. So there's this book that I'm reading now as well, and it's called Sid Meier Memoir, kind of named after Sid Meier's Civilization. So Sid Meier, for those that don't know, was the creator of the original Civilization game, and he kind of starts off right in the beginning, 1 billion hours. It's just like you can't even comprehend this amount of time. But according to Steam, from 2010 up to 2016, Civilization was played for over 1 billion hours, according to Steam. Which is just, again, it's a phenomenal, almost mind-blowing number. It's a great little memoir. I've only read the first couple of chapters. He's got a very charming way of talking about stuff, but just sort of, again, there's another man who created games for the fun of the game, really didn't get into it to make a lot of money initially. He made quite a lot of money out of it because he was quite good at what he did, but he didn't get into it specifically to make money. He had a day job. He was just doing it on the side to have fun and maybe make a little bit of extra coin. I don't think he ever, certainly in the beginning, he says he never certainly contemplated you could ever make a career as a game developer. And a lot of his original games were very small projects, very one-man projects with very little outside assistance or no outside assistance. And yet he created like what was at the time like an absolutely revolutionary game. And I remember playing Civilization, the original Civilization, on PC. I'm trying to think now. What PC did my father have that I played that game on? My father introduced me to it. He played it, and then I fell in love with it, and I played it a lot. And I think it was a PS2. I think it was an IBM PS2. I'm pretty sure, yeah. I'm pretty sure it was the IBM PS2, released in 1987, replacing the PC, I believe we had an XT before that. But yeah, so my father got a PS2, and this was one of the games that we played on it at the time, was Civilization. And I remember just what a compelling game that was, and you got so into it, and get so involved with it, and you were so invested in that game and wanting your civilization to succeed. And I remember one of my most epic ones still that I have been probably unable to recreate quite the joy of this civilization, and I'm pretty sure I was the Romans, which was the default one back in the day. But I remember I was the Roman civilization, and I managed to conquer about 2/3 of the world. But there was this one civilization that had escaped me, and it was, and I remember it was the Mongols of all things. And I conquered all the other civilizations that I'd encountered over time. Maybe not right away, but eventually I built up an army. Sometimes literally hundreds of catapult units in a single stack, and I'd send them after my enemies, and boom, wiped out. Just absolutely demolished their cities and took over all their cities, a little bit at a time. But then this one civilization I couldn't find. They were hidden on a continent on the other side of the world that I could not get to until I had enough boats. And I remember eventually conquering their civilization, but because their civilization grew up without any pressure from anybody else, they were quite powerful as well. And it was I just remember how compelling the whole thing was. I was so excited to finally find where they were, and at the time I was a bit of a warmonger as the Romans, and I just wandered in and I just conquered the whole thing. The game was very much about conquering, but it was such a compelling game. You wanted to succeed. You were constantly racing to be ahead of the other civilizations. It was so well executed, and I feel like the graphics have certainly improved in subsequent versions of Civilization, but the game mechanics have improved in certain ways, but I don't think they've ever quite come back to that same sense of basic joy of just conquering the whole planet. And back then it was just all squares. It was just a big grid system. It was nothing very fancy. The graphics were, it was all VGA graphics. It was not a particularly fancy system, but nevertheless, it was a great game. It was one of my favorite games as a kid. Still is to this day. I still do enjoy that game. It's definitely up there on my list of favorite games. I find that the current franchise, with the amount of DLC you have to get to kind of get to all the different levels, I find it's not as much fun as it used to be. And the other thing too is there's often a lot of restrictions on how many units you can have in a certain spot. Back then it was, if you could create the industrial base, you could just build an army of an infinite size. You could build almost an unlimited number of units. Obviously there was a limit to how much the PS2 could process, but like I said, I would have sometimes close to 100 units in one spot, and I just moved that giant army around, and boom, nothing could resist that army. I just had to have a little defense around it, but nothing could resist that army. Now, and I get that they tried to rebalance the game in different ways. I still enjoy it, not as much as I did back then, but there's been some great games. Sid Meier has written some awesome games in his career. Lots of games that I have found very compelling over the years. So it's a really interesting book if you ever get a chance. I just happened, this was just dumb luck that I found this book. I was literally walking through an airport, and I just caught a glimpse of it in the bookstore in the airport. And I'm just like, you know what? That seems like something that my dad would be interested in. So I picked it up and I gave it to him for his birthday, 2 months later or something like that. because I remember he played that game as well. He also enjoyed lots of Sid Meier games over the years. So I thought this is definitely something he might be interested in. But yeah, if you ever get a chance, it's not a long read. It's definitely a pretty short read. I just haven't had much time to get through it yet. But yeah, if you're at all interested in like some very classic PC games and some original history of PC games, definitely an interesting little memoir to read for sure. All right, we are getting there. Let's see, how are we doing here? We are getting towards the Bahamas. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a really quick little bathroom break here. For about the next 5 to 10 minutes, just because I feel like I might need to eat something as well. But more than anything, I need a little bathroom break before we can start dealing with Miami, because Miami's going to handle us pretty much all the way down to Tampa. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just set the external view for a few minutes. So just guard your ears here, people, because it's going to get loud. Yeah, but just for a couple minutes, I'm just going to step away and just make sure I'm ready for the last hour or so of this flight into Tampa. So thanks for watching, guys. Stick with me. I'll be back in just about 10 minutes or so, and so about 40 minutes after the hour, and we'll start talking to Miami and start thinking about our arrival into Tampa. So thank you guys so much for watching, and stick with me. Welcome back to the stream. I am back here to see that Miami Center has been poking me. So let's get them up here. 3517 seems to be the frequency. So let's get them going here. And we're going to have now live ATC all the way back down to Tampa. I was not sure if we get any ATC today because it's Monday morning. Monday? Yeah, it's Monday.
Okay, good day.
Miami Center, good afternoon. JetBlue 1652, flight level 360.
JetBlue 1652, Miami Center, hello, ident.
Here comes the ident, JetBlue 1652. All right, get ourselves online here. Hello, Classic Pilot. Welcome to the chat.
JetBlue 1652, radar contact 80 southeast of Bimini, squawk 7326.
Squawk 7326, JetBlue 1652. 7326. All right. He's got radar contact with us, and as I even look out here now, I can see Tampa scrolling slowly into view of the outskirts of my navigation display, my ND there. So,
November 7 Papa Juliet, to center maintain flight level
looks like there's some ATC kind of erupting into
210,
VATSIM now. There's also a Orlando controller. There is a Tampa ATIS. This guy did throw up a Tampa ATIS, which makes me think that we are getting all the way to the ground today. Nice. Did not. There we go. There's my thumbs up. See, I was holding it over here. It's out of the way. There. Yeah. All right. Because I was honestly not expecting too much ATC. It's a Monday morning. Was not. You know. I think my expectations were realistic. Let's see here. So let's see here. He's not. It's not in range yet. Pardon me. On my V pilot. Sorry, I should definitely mute that before I start coughing here. My apologies. Alright, so let's have a quick look here. So I've got 040, 7 gusting 18, 10 miles, light rain, broken 2500.
American 1025, flight level 5.
22 degrees, 3003.
10.
Departing runway 1 left,
contact, climbing to
runway
maintain
1 right, ILS approach runway 1 left, localizer runway 1 right, in use, turbojets arrivals, expect runway 1 left,
Miami Center, JetBlue 2425,
NOTAMs, noise abatement, NOTAMs, bird
Remember,
activity, hazardous
611, let's
weather.
say when you're able, join Papa to parking, good day.
Alright, so,
Have a good day and thank you for the show.
approach,
and
ILS
UPS
approach runway 1
2277 ready
left,
taxi with
localizer
information
runway
hotel.
right. So, alright, so it sounds like 1 left is the approach to use. Before I get too far into this, the other thing I want to know is just what is the typical gate for JetBlue in Tampa?
Cross runway
So
8
let's
left
just
at
see
Lima 1.
if they have anything that's gone from TJSJ to KTPA. Let's find out what kind
Taxi
of
to 8 right
gauge
by Kilo,
we would get
Kilo
here.
1, Lima 1, approximately 8 left
JetBlue
at
does do
Lima
this
1
flight.
for UPS 2277.
There's one scheduled late today at 8 hours.
Miami Center, American 1188
Looks
eastbound.
like they do.
1188, thank you.
Looks like JetBlue does one very
November
late
7 Papa Juliet, contact
evening
Havana
flight, so let's use last night's flight.
124.55.
Let's see what gate they went to in Tampa. Let me know how that volume balance is. ATC to Tampa is breaking protocol. I know. Yeah, I just fly whenever I feel like. If they show up, I can't help
Number
it.
7 Papa Juliet, contact
All
Havana
right, so
Center,
they went to gate Alpha 11 in
124.55.
Tampa. So that's what we're going to target as well as gate Alpha 11. They did leave gate Alpha 4, which is the gate we departed in
November
San Juan.
237 Papa Juliet.
And I'm just going to now.
Go ahead.
Number 7 Papa Juliet, contact Havana Center, 124.55.
All right, let me know if you think that the ATC is too loud that if I can't talk over it. I think it's okay. But yeah, let me know if you're having a hard time hearing me over them, and I can turn them down a little bit. But yeah, let's do this. So let's start pulling up some charts and start thinking about what we're doing here for our arrival. I'm actually going to kind of almost work backwards here. So we're going to start with the sudden rocket there. These planes are rocking, don't come a knocking, I guess. Let's see here, 1 left. So let's go, show me the charts for Tampa. And I want to see the parking gates and coordinates here.
Miami Center,
Here's Alpha 11, so here's airside Alpha, so it is the southeast side here. 11 is pretty much the middle of the concourse. Okay, so I just want to see if there's anything interesting down here. Terminal Doppler radar, because I have not flown to Tampa in a long time. Low-level wind shear alert system, runway 19 left, noise sensible, noise sensitive turbojets departure. 1 right is noise sensitive.
583 November Delta, you read our contact. 20 miles south of Sarasota, said altimeter 2908, you said you're full stop at Sarasota,
1020 is not normally available for aircraft operations over 75,000 pounds, 34 kilos, 34 tons. Okay,
I'm sorry, that was completely broken.
Well, that was just me then.
583 Delta, copy, 2998, and this one will be and go Sarasota following southbound back to Victor November Charlie.
Wow.
America 1629, radio check. JetBlue 2475, radio check.
JetBlue 2475, hear you 5x5.
Thank you. JetBlue 1652, radio check.
JetBlue 1652, I got you 5x5.
Thank you. November 3 November Delta, there is something wrong with your internet. The transmission is completely chopped and I can't hear a word you're saying.
Radio check 583 November Delta.
Alright, it's back to what it was. Still hard to understand you. What do you want to do at Sarasota?
Touch and go following southbound back to Victor November Charlie. 583 November Delta.
November 3 November Delta Roger. What runway would you like at Sarasota? Runway 4 or runway 14?
Request
Numbers TCAS alerts students and approaches due to the traffic pattern of McGill
3 November Delta, make straight in, runway 4, wind 07014, gust 22, runway 4, clear touch and go.
Runway 4, clear touch and go, 583 November Delta.
Miami Center, Baron 65 Bravo, right downwind, 9 right.
And 6-5 Bravo, you want to land 9er right? Is that close to where you're parking?
Yeah, we'll make our way from there, but yeah, we'll land
right
right for 6-5 Bravo.
6-5 Bravo, taming ME 107011, runway 9er right, clear to land.
Keep an eye out for traffic on that.
9er right
should
for
help us
land,
with that as well.
6-5 Bravo, thanks.
Airlines Center, good afternoon. American 2422, just push back from Delta 47, contact.
For the taxi in, we are going to
American
need a bit of a roundabout route, so we're going to land one left.
300.
It'll probably be, it'll either be up to the top, crossing either off Bravo, or down to Juliet on the air side Alpha.
EPS 2277 shorter runway.
It's going to be a little bit of an awkward long taxi, but what are you going to do?
2422, Miami Center, runway 8 right, taxi via Whiskey Mike.
Arrival. And yeah, so.
8 right via Whiskey Mike, American 2422.
UPS 2277, wind
Let's start with crunching some numbers here. So first of all, the status page, center tank fuel unusable, center tank pumps off, and that is the Airbus way of it now. If there's nothing in the center tank, turn the pumps off so they don't burn themselves out. Let's see here. Landing elevation at 0 feet, that's good, and engine oil is also good. We didn't burn too much oil in our engines today. And let's see our landing data here.
American 2675, wind 3609er, fly runway heading, runway 9er left, cleared for takeoff.
Tampa, runway.
Runway heading 09 left, cleared for takeoff. 2675.
Runway 1 left, that's the one. Dry runway. Let's just apply the METAR. And landing weight, what are we looking at for landing weight today here?
Southwest 3952, contact
Havana
124.55.
5 tons, that'll put us at
124.55.
American 1188, leaving my airspace to the north. Jack center not online, frequency change approved
low
today.
auto brake, it's fine. Idle, no reverse, it's fine. Manual landing, flaps full, auto thrust on, yeah. And then we get a 7,067 foot distance on an 11,000 foot runway. That's more than acceptable.
American 1188, leaving my airspace to the north. Jack center not online, frequency change approved.
Okay, so the landing distance looks acceptable.
Frequency change approved.
Let's just have a look through this
Thank you for the help.
FMC here. Actually, before we even look through the FMC, let's have a quick look at the NOTAMs. Just make sure there's nothing that's going to really kind of throw off our NOTAMs. Throw off our arrival process.
The UBS 2277, heavy
Alright, so
better
there's
contact,
Tampa.
climb 1916,000.
Climb 1916,000, EPS 2277 heavy.
See, and I feel like this is going to be like a time.
American 1282 calling from Tampa.
That's the one thing that SimBrief does not do a job of, is outlining the times on these.
It's me. Oh, I see you on the taxi down there. Yeah, I worked the whole thing. Did I not send you a PDC?
Negative.
Okay, Charlie 1, Charlie 2, Charlie 3.
That'd be because I don't have a flight plan for you. Did you file one American 1282?
We will double check that and call right back. American 1282.
In the meantime, you can keep on going down to 1 left, just hold short of the runway, and then we'll get everything sorted out down there.
Charlie 1.
Alright, 1 left, we'll hold short. American 1282.
Name between Juliet November.
Miami Center on
November between Delta and 4.
2941 is with you at gate 47.
Delta between Fox 1 and Delta 1.
Envoy 2941, Miami Center, clearance center request number 2.
So there's definitely something going on with one
American
right here.
2675, radar contact, say altitude.
So we're going to land 1 left anyway, so it doesn't matter to us. Juliet between Echo.
American 2675, thank you. Climb and maintain 4,000. Turn left, heading 300.
Heading 300, 4,000, 2673.
Ring 340 at Fort Lauderdale.
So 1 right, 19 left closed, 1028 closed. Now I'm guessing this probably happens at night for like but I'm going to look at it in a second here on the other
well
system.
advised, we're ready for taxi.
Since we don't care about approaches. Nav, ILS, 19 left, 1 right, is offline.
And
right.
The Envoy phone for clearance, say again?
ILS 1 left, missed approach TACAN portion, not applicable.
Envoy 2941 is with you at Sarasota.
PIE TACAN out of service.
Envoy 2941, Miami Center, hello. You cleared to the Nassau Airport, red vector to Sabi that is filed. Maintain 4,000. Expect level 280, 10 minutes after departure. Departure with me.
So yeah, because one thing that doesn't seem to get filtered onto the SimBrief flight plans is time. So let's just see if I can find this here.
Roger that, clear to Nassau, radar vector, or sorry, direct to CV. Then flight climb maintain 4,000, expect.
Let's just do this here. Let's go
8,000, wind minutes after departure.
Tampa, KTPA.
Envoy 2941, read back correct. American 2675, climb and maintain 9,000, turn left direct,
Yeah,
Gator.
26 September through the 14th of October, 1 right, 19 left, close 10 minutes. So all those taxiway closures are valid for the time being until the 14th of October for 1 right, 4th of October for
UPS 2277, climb and maintain
okay,
level
so anyway,
380.
not too much of an issue because all the taxiways that deal with these two runways, we're going to go land over on this runway and taxi into airside Alpha. So, okay, so
JetBlue
all right.
2475, leaving my airspace.
Good to know though. Good to kind of read that through before we actually start dealing with this. All right.
Over to you, thank you, TC.
So let's just go through this. Make sure that everything we need is in the system here.
American 1282 did send you that PDC once it popped in the system for me. Just let me know when you're ready for departure.
Yeah, PDC received, ready for departure, short of 1 left at Whiskey 1
Alright,
here
so
at
let's just
Tampa,
bring up
American
the
1282.
Bullfrog 2.
American 1282, thanks. Fly runway heading, runway
Doing
1 left,
the
cleared for takeoff, wind
Euro
03087, gust 18.
transition here. So
Runway
way
heading,
in
clear
from
for
the
takeoff
southwest here.
on 1
Southeast,
left,
I should say.
American
Square jets turboprops only.
2422 holding short, 8 right.
We're going to get vectors over, that's
American
fine.
2422
ones, Disty on track
have
321.
sea salt, wind 04015, gust 21, runway 8 right,
J-stream.
cleared for takeoff.
And on track 276 to cross
Arnett, sea
cruise.
salt, clear for takeoff,
At
8
about
right,
4,000,
American 2242.
2422.
2422.
Final approach course. So let's just make sure all these waypoints are in here. After Farrell, we should have Bullfrog. Kosar, D-side.
I'm sorry, calling it Tampa, it was just a little quiet for me to be able to understand.
J-stream and cruise is above 4,000, so there's no bottom altitude on this. It's just
Delta
cruise under above 4,000.
2163,
It's plenty
push
of
your
cruise at
discretion, it'll be runway 1 left.
5,000.
Press on 1 left from.
Yeah, okay, I'll buy that. That'll be fine.
JetBlue 2274, are you here?
Affirmative, JetBlue
Actually,
2274
no, let's
ready.
do that. Let's harden up
to
this
1 left.
altitude cruise. I had to make this
JetBlue
a hard
2274,
4,000
Roger.
cruise
I
just to sort
saw
of,
you pushing, thought you might have been
help
ready
our
to go.
descent plan in there.
Runway 1
now it's
left,
got
taxi
should
via
4,000.
Gulf,
It does. Okay.
Juliet 1, Juliet, Whiskey.
And then the approach is the ILS 1 left.
Okay, taxi runway 1 left
Starts at
via
Lagu.
Golf, Juliet 1, Juliet, and Whiskey.
Manual leg there. We got the vector leg. Pardon me, we got Lagu.
Miami Center, November 5, S3, November Delta,
Selman,
airborne air from Sarasota,
and then
turning south direction to
one left. So
Victor,
Selman
November
is
Charlie,
at
passing 7 with
2660.
3,500.
3 November Delta, radar contact.
It's at 2600 actually. Selman's at 2600. Lagu is the same basically. Yeah. Missed approach, it's 500 feet, decline left turn to 3,000 direct to PIE VOR. Now we have RNF available so we can use that still, even if the TACAN's actually offline. So 3,000 feet, and at 500 it's left turn direct to
American
16.
1629, leaving my airspace to the north. Check
Alright,
center
so
not
that all
online.
looks pretty
Frequency
good.
change
Rad
approved
nav,
today.
let's do this here. So
will see you next time, great job.
1089 IAMP, and course 007008 is within reason. Minus 3 degree slope, that's good.
Airwing
Frog page, let's go ahead and just put
ready for taxi clear.
KTPA.
Spare wings 340, Miami Center. Runway 10
Alright,
right.
so we got
Taxi via
180 miles
Tango
to
8.
go there.
Hotel 5, Juliet.
Predicted GPS, not that we need it for an ILS, but it's
Tango
good.
8, Hotel 5,
Performance.
Juliet for runway
77258.
10
We never did. We
right.
never did bump up this cost index.
Spare wing 340.
Okay, we'll do this in a second.
JetBlue 1652, showing an area of light to moderate precipitation. You're kind of coming up to the south end of it now, but off your right and spans a little bit to the north. You want any turns to the left of the wood, or is everything looking good for you?
10 miles, light rain broke 2,500. Yeah, that's what we had before. 3003. So 30.03. It's 28 degrees. It's 040 at 7. 28 degrees. 040 at 7.
American 1282, you read our contact, say altitude.
And let's see here, Barrow winds for this,
1,400
211. I didn't see
American
any
American
NOTAMS amending that, so
American
211.
1282, thank you. Climb to maintain 12,000.
So accelerate to
Prime
3,000
maintain
both cases.
12,000
In and
request
out,
on
orange
course,
on.
American 1282.
American 1282, I'll have a turn for you in just a
Fuel
couple
prediction.
miles.
So we're showing 2.2 extra. That's over an hour of extra fuel. We can definitely
maintain
up our
runway
fuel burn
heading
here.
up to 12,000 American 1282.
And secondary, we're just going to recopy the active. So it's got everything in there up to 10 for one left. We can modify it if we need to, but I don't see anything we're going to need because one right's closed anyway, so it's only one runway we can use.
American 1282, proceed direct VAPO.
Let's bump this up to a cost index of 50. It's not going to impact us too much anymore.
Direct VAPO, American 1282.
2.2 still is what it's showing. Perf paves, it says probably going to be faster now. 79326. That's about as fast as
American 2675, climb and maintain 16,000.
79320.
16,000 American 2675.
Put that in there.
American 2422, radar contact, say altitude. 5,000.
Still no change on this, so I'll leave
American 2422, climb maintain 16,000.
Climb 16,000, 16,000, 2422.
The thing is that it's the climb that makes the biggest difference on the cost index. Now we're accelerating by like 7 or 8 knots. It's not even much we're accelerating by. The descent's now already fixed. I fixed it at a certain speed, so we have a margin in the descent. There's not much else we can do. We're going to arrive there. At the time we arrive there, we might shave off 2 minutes at this rate, but not much. Pardon me. All right. And
American 1025, cross Canoa.
I think that setup is all complete. Cross over Miami here soon. Let's see here. Or did we already cross Miami?
American
oh, we already crossed the coastline. I didn't even realize it.
At flight level 260.
Yeah, there we go. We're already over Miami. Here we are setting up. We're all eyes inside setting up. Didn't even realize we're already over Florida itself. All right. Well,
American
we're back
at 1025.
mainland. All right.
Envoy 2941.
You have control.
Runway 14, taxi via Alpha. Cross
Are you ready for the
4.
approach briefing?
Go ahead.
And that reminds me to set this up because I forgot to set this up for the departure. That's why he called the wrong V1 numbers and everything. So weather's good. Runway, weather's going to be, actually, yeah. That makes me think about this. It was raining. I should definitely be using wet numbers.
Delta 2163, runway 1 left, taxi via Whiskey.
Did not make too much of a difference, even with wet numbers.
American 1282, leaving my airspace to the north. Jack Center not online. Frequency change approved. Have a good day.
Threats weather.
Unicom
yes.
American 1282.
ILS, auto land, no. Final sector, yes. Decision height 211. Sent out, or sorry, 211. And the arrival airport elevation at 11 feet. Alright, so that's all set up. Let's get this briefing done here. So, technical status of the aircraft. We didn't have that one ELAC. No, the sec fault? No, it was an ELAC one. It was ELAC one fault.
United 260.
It obviously was not a big issue. It was reset successfully. It hadn't come back, so it's not a problem. Maintenance has been notified and will meet us on arrival to discuss it further. The let's see here. The
American 1025 cross Canoa at flight level 260.
Canoa, flight level 360, you said?
Negative 260, 260.
260, American 1025.
American 2675.
All right, so today we're doing the
360.
Bullfrog 2 RNAV arrival for all runways in Tampa, Florida, plate 20-2. The routing constraints are all
2422, climb and maintain flight level 360.
as published. Those are all met. We're going to transition through vectors from good old
United
Center here
261,
to
you're
the ILS runway 1 left here in Tampa, Florida.
Miami landing east, Miami altimeter
So the local frequency IMP 1089 and the final approach course 007. That's already all been confirmed. It's auto-tuned itself. Flight slope 2600 feet at Seldom.
United 261.
I'm just going to turn them down for a second here.
November Delta,
And the ILS DA 211 feet. We got 211 feet up there. Touchdown zone 11 feet. The MSA is 2,700 feet, all sectors around the St. Pete's VOR. Missed approach is as published or is otherwise signed by ATC. Top altitude is 3,000. And yeah, it's a free glide slope. Copies on the left, ALSF2 lighting system, some great scenery from vertical sim when we get there. RVR 1800 a half miles, what we need. It's rain showers, but it doesn't seem to be currently affecting the visibility too much. We'll have a look at the weather radar in a second to discuss that further.
0308 RNAV Calypso, runway 10 right.
Landing runway 1 left. We're going to touch down in the optimal touchdown zone. The end of the TPL will be the end of the attain to touchdown zone at 3,000 feet. Inconvenient right turn off the runway at any of the high speeds to get over gate Alpha 11 on the far side. So Alpha Bravo is north, Juliet is south, so we'll kind of keep that in mind. Alpha Bravo at the north and Juliet south. So we'll try and time it. Maybe Whiskey 6 would be ideal if we can sort of get off there. And that'll be a pretty quick taxi around the other side of the terminal. We'll get a good view of the scenery this way. Yeah. Let's see here. The it'll be a managed.
1652 descend via the Bullfrog to arrival. Tampa landing north. Tampa altimeter 3001.
All right, descend via the Bullfrog to arrival for Tampa landing north. JetBlue 1652. All right, 4,000 is the only altitude that's on there. So we got 4,000 feet set. We're not actually starting down for another 40 miles, but it's there. Yeah, so it'll be a managed approach to a manual landing. Once we're clear for the approach, we'll arm approach mode, second to autopilot. The NTAs, I'm expecting it to be off because it's quite warm down there. Auto brake, we've got low.
41.
We'll have
fly runway heading.
Moderate reverse. Probably not full reverse, but we'll definitely do some reverse because it is a wet runway. And flaps full configuration for landing. Yeah. That's basically all I've got. I'll disengage the autopilot once we're established on final and our landing is assured and there's no traffic on the runway ahead. And threats. So the biggest threat right now seems to be potentially the weather. It is raining in Tampa, so let's just have a quick look here. Do I get... I forget if we get a weather overlay in the sim or not. Let's do this. Let's do... No, I don't get a weather overlay in the sim. So let's bring up the weather overlay here. Oh, easy there.
Experience 340, radar contact, climb and maintain 16,000.
16,004.
So they are calling like rain showers in Tampa. I'm not seeing much, to be honest. I'll just put this on.
American 1025, contact Havana Center 124.55.
Just a few. I don't even see anything near Tampa itself. So it must be a very, pardon me, isolated rain shower. My throat is definitely starting to run out of steam here.
American 1020.
So I don't anticipate that being a major issue. Our alternate is Orlando, which also seems to be doing very nicely right now. And we do have an excess 2 tons, almost an hour's worth of fuel before we'd have to head to Orlando. So I don't see that as, again, being much of an issue. We can check the Orlando ATIS if we're interested here because it is available here on my V-Pilot. So KMCO arrival ATIS. And
Central aircraft Miami Center will be closing in about 20 minutes, close to the bottom of the hour.
Ooh, hopefully. We should be able to make it in there. 8 miles, scattered 3,400, 29, 21, 3003. So it approaches parallel runways in use. But yeah, landing north. It looks pretty nice, a little gusty. But
Delta 2163.
Not completely unmanageable anyways. Well, it's good that we put that cost index all the way up to 100 then for this arrival if this guy's going to leave in 20 minutes because that's about the time we're going to get there.
JetBlue 2274, radar contacts.
Alright, so the potential threat is, of course, ATC leaving and us being stuck in an uncontrolled airport. So I do have VATSIM up on my second screen to help mitigate that risk. If ATC does leave us, we'll have an idea of what's going on around there because there is a couple of airplanes operating. There's 1 departure, there's 2 departures. We're the only arrival. No, we're not the only arrival. We're the only arrival nearby. There's a couple departures, 1 on the ground, 1 just left. So there could be some other aircraft around we've got to keep an eye out for. Yeah, we've mitigated the threat of rain with wet numbers. We do have an alternate that is holding up nicely. I don't think we're going to need it. But with only 1 runway available at Tampa, it's a good thing to know what it's doing and know that it is available to us.
Bearing 340, climb and maintain level 350.
I think that's about all I could really think of.
Level 350.
You might be his last aircraft. I know we're just right on the right on the cusp here. We're showing 1731. He'll probably get us established on final on Turfus to Unicom, which is cool. If he gives us the vector to final and Turfus is on Unicom, I'm okay with that. That's all I can really think of for threats. Any questions?
No questions.
JetBlue 2274, leaving my airspace to north, Jack Center not online, frequency change approved.
Descent checklist.
See you, have a good day, JetBlue.
I think there is a descent checklist in this airplane, is there? Hold on, there's my checklist. There is no descent checklist, just an approach checklist. Okay, so yeah. That's
good afternoon,
all I've got.
Currently into 360, requesting descent.
Air Portugal
We are going
223,
up to that top of the descent point pretty quickly. He's giving us the descent vias. Here's the west coast of Florida. This is Fort Myers, I believe, right off the left side here.
Squawk 5140.
Typical Florida weather. You got some clouds around, but nothing too crazy. There are some buildups. But again, nothing too crazy. Even if it is wet when we get there, I don't think it's going to be too bad. And we will have Fenix2GSX.
2941, you radar contact, say your current
Fenix2GSX with us here again. So when we do get on the ground, it's going to automatically start the deboarding process once we turn the beacon off at the gate. When we're parking the gate, turn the beacon off. So I got to make sure I turn off the seatbelt signs before I do that. And yeah, it'll automatically start that deboarding process for us. So I don't even have to do anything. The only thing I'm going to have to do is when we're on descent, I am going to have to set up an arrival. I don't think I can do it at this point because it still has the restriction.
Bow, climb and maintain 12,000.
I've been to Marco Island. I've been to Fort Myers. Okay. Well, maybe we can set up before we get there. Yeah, we just got to set up our arrival gate for Alpha 11. It's about the only thing we got to do. Otherwise, GSX will be completely automated by
Air Portugal 223, radar contact, 50 miles southeast.
Yeah, and I think that's about it. We're just about ready to start our descent and head down into Tampa, Florida.
Miami altimeter is 2994.
And at least we got ATC for most of the arrival process here.
08 right.
That's all I can really think of right now. So if you guys have anything else you want to talk about, please ask.
And
this is kind of the last chance. We're going to start down here.
Portugal 223 heavy.
I didn't give you an altitude, I give you an instruction to descend via the vice to arrival. It's the star you filed. There will be published altitudes to follow along the arrival. You may comply with those.
Descending via the star vice to Portugal 223 heavy.
VATSIM, it's always a learning environment. I do find that some controllers do get irate and think a little too quick.
American 2675, amend altitude, maintain.
We're here to provide a realistic experience, but we're also here to have fun and learn, and I feel like some people sometimes just take it just a little bit too seriously.
Leaving my airspace to the north, Jackson
Alright,
not
let's go
online,
ahead and
frequency change approved.
Managed, Mach, descent, all
Over
blue.
to the dark side for your UPS 2277, we'll see you.
So yeah.
I mean, I get, you want it to be realistic. I get it. I totally do. I want it to be realistic too, but
level 280.
The majority of people who use VATSIM are not pilots. They're not pilots, they're not real world controllers. There needs to be a level of understanding, a level of reasonable understanding that, you know, it's not going to be perfect. We're not going to do things perfectly.
Envoy 2941, turn right heading 180, vector for traffic.
We may not even thrust idle. You know all the procedures of a particular country. You know, it's a great chance. Like, to me, this is a great tool for practicing procedures and learning procedures and being taught. But there's a certain tone of voice that when controllers get it, it shuts off the learning. You think by chastising people, I think some people think by chastising people that they're helping, but they're not in the long run, because oftentimes the chastising ends up just making people feel bad, and they either don't come back,
1232
or they do come back, but they don't try to learn because they just
0308 on an elbow.
It's not a pleasant sensation. People are much more conducive to learning if they're having a pleasant sensation. So if you're having a good time, and okay, I'm learning stuff, I don't know everything, I want to learn stuff. It's a much more
United
pleasant
261, expect ILS runway 8 right approach, Miami altimeter 2994.
So I must be probably, yeah. Exactly, like, there's got to be a little bit of leeway. It's the tone more than anything that sets it, that says, you know, you should know this already, and you're an idiot because you don't. That really is the part that bugs me. We're not all experts at the subject matter. All right, we got the speed brakes out before you overspeed here. But but most people are willing to learn. They wouldn't probably be here if they didn't want to learn something cool. Teach them. Don't chastise them. Teach them, and they'll come back and they'll be your faithful pilot clients for a long time. I've sworn off one particular area of VAT USA.
2941, proceed right to Lee County, Romeo Sierra Whiskey.
I just felt like the controllers there were just not.
Lee County, 2941.
It's not even that they weren't any good; it's that they were not trying to even. They weren't even trying to help or do anything. They were just. I don't know. I maybe I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder, and it's possible, but I just felt like I was getting no support from them, and I just said, you know what? I have no interest in flying in this airspace anymore. There's lots of other airspace with controllers that are helpful, that are willing to be team players, and that was, I think, that was the biggest thing. Was
American
I felt like
2675 cross.
this guy was not even trying to be a team player. He was not even trying to use my call sign.
Say again for 2675.
I found very frustrating.
American 2675 cross Kanoa at flight level 260.
Don't even send feedback forms very often, but I did send a feedback form. I said this is a sorry way to run a subdivision.
Delta 2163, I'm sorry, I should have switched. You leaving my airspace to the north, track center 9 online, frequency change approved. Have a good one.
Alright. Well, we're heading down. We're almost there. How's my tracking doing here? I haven't even looked at this either. Tracking's doing good. There are a couple things on my dashboard. I did see that I had a couple of messages. I did make some money on my last couple of legs, so salary income. Made $185 for going all the way down to San Juan last time. That's not too bad. Friend request received from Justin McFarland. Please go to the community page to accept it.
Just off the spot.
Absolutely, Justin. Welcome to the illustrious team of Captain Naps' friends.
8 right, taxi via Mike.
Country
8
Ireland.
right via Mike, Delta 626. American 2626.
Alright, it's being accepted, and boom. Not too many people are actually online. Graham Cook, hey, Graham Cook is online somewhere. He's not even watching the stream, but he's online flying somewhere. There goes Bullfrog. If I do flight, that'll show me the map with other people on it. So there is Randy Houston, Wyatt Zenda.
JetBlue 1652, do you have a preference on the left or the right side at Tampa?
And JetBlue 1652, we saw no time that the right side was closed, so we'll take the left.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm simulating that or not. I'd have to check the ATIS, but yeah, you can expect the left side. Expect visual approach from my 1 left.
All right, thank you very much for flying the visual 1 left, JetBlue 1652. Yeah, I roll both ways for sure.
Good afternoon.
Send them a note.
There's a 521 direct to Maxon, flight level 370.
I'm sorry, say again that call sign.
Azores Airlines 521.
I'm sorry, you're just saying the word too fast. I'm not sure what RZO is. One more time.
Azores Airlines 521.
Azores, okay. Azores Airlines 521 Miami Center. Hello.
Alright, send him a nice little pleasant note just that I try to roll with them whenever I can, but I get it. Especially when you're a controller, you gotta roll both ways because not everyone knows and understands the NOTAM system, and that's cool. That's part of the joy of teaching, the learning.
Spring 12, no problem, your radar contact, climb maintain 16,000.
Let's see here, it was 3003. So 30, oop, no, that's the wrong button there. Come on, do it. 3003 is the altimeter. Change this quickly. I'm gonna get a ping.
3 0 0 3 set passing 16,200. Now.
Cool. I didn't even trigger that. I guess he triggered it on his own. Anywho. We got no speed restriction on this star. We just have to be at or above 4,000 at Cruza. We're going to be actually at 4,000 at Cruza.
Portugal 223 Heavy?
Yes, sir.
Can you request a runway change for runway 12, if possible?
Portugal 223 Heavy, sure. I expect the ILS runway 12.
Alright, so TATS plus 25. We definitely don't need the NTX for this cloud here. However, it might get a little bit bumpy, so it might be a good idea to turn on the
American 2422, cross Kanoa at flight level 260.
Might as well just turn them on at this point.
Cross Kanoa 260, American 2422.
American 2422, actually disregard that. You can maintain flight level 360.
Roger that, we'll maintain 360, American 2422.
Yeah, he said he just didn't happen to check the NOTAMs today, as he usually does, which is cool. Like, I get it. Like, especially when you're a center controller, you've got so much to check up on.
Maintain flight level 360.
You got so much to check up on when you're a center controller. You've got
Spirit Wings 340, leave my airspace.
Dozens of airports in your airspace, so I totally get it if you don't have the chance to check all these things and make sure they're all set up. So,
thank you for your services. Have a good day. Spirit Wings 340.
Alright, so we got people sitting down now because it's probably going to get a little bit bumpy through this here, which is fine. But you just want to think about the safety for passengers. Let's reset my, there we go. Got to sit upright for the approach and landing here. No more slacking off way back here. Sitting almost on top of the seat. Alright. We're doing well though. It's a pity that the failure I triggered was nothing more exciting than an ELAC failure, because it really is nothing quite as boring as an ELAC failure. Alright, there's the 250 knots triggered for 10,000 feet. Maybe we can get our GSX going here now? Nope, not yet. Sarasota, nope.
United 261, descend to maintain 3,000.
I think when we get below 10,000, it'll
I'm just going to maintain 3,000, United 261.
Below 10,000, 250 knots, I think it'll automatically offer destination as an option.
Miami American 626, holding short of 8, right ready to go.
American 626, don't have sea salt, runway 8 right, cleared for takeoff, wind 03012, gust 18.
Right,
clear. Other than a little bit of convective activity and some rain showers, it looks like it's a nice day though.
American 2675, descend flight level 260.
American 2675, I issued you the descent. When I said cross Kanoa at flight level 260, that is a clearance to begin your descent at your discretion to meet the restriction.
Copy that, 2675.
Alright, more drag. We're getting there. We're getting there slowly. I'm not too worried. Your stream plus failure equals always a lame failure. I know. It never is an interesting one, but I mean, that's often the way it is.
2675, contact Havana, 124.55.
I really would like the failures to be a little more interesting. If I keep getting more people watching, I'll keep on re-triggering failures, because sometimes it'll do like related failures. Like if you trigger 1 sec, and then like 10 minutes later, if you trigger another failure, it'll trigger the second sec, and then all of a sudden now you've got a dual sec fault. That's a major failure. Any loss of the same, like dual loss of the same flight computers becomes a very serious failure very quickly. Alright. Approach checklist.
Barrel ref.
3003 set.
3003 set. Seatbelts.
Good afternoon, Miami Center, November 24 Echo. With information. Romeo. Right, taxi
211 feet
runway
set.
8. Left, departing segment to fly.
Low armed.
Miami.
Engine mode.
Clear 24 Echo Echo Miami Center, runway 8 left, taxi via Kilo.
Alright, so that's 10,000 descending
Via
4,000.
Kilo for November 24 Echo Echo. Thank you.
Number 4 Echo Echo, I need to read back the runway assignment, please. Runway 8 left, taxi via Kilo.
November 24 Echo Echo via Kilo, taxi to runway 8 left for Echo Echo.
Thank you. JetBlue 1652, descend and maintain 3,000.
Descend maintain 3,000 to JetBlue 1652. Alright, so what we're going to do, we're just going to do open descent. Thrust idle open descent, all blue. Because he's removed the star restriction now, so we don't need to worry about meeting the star restriction because he gave us just a descent instruction.
United 261, turn right heading 360, vector final approach course, descend and maintain 2,000.
Just vectored on the final. If we're lucky, we'll get to a landing and a taxi clearance from the sky. If not, we'll have taxi on our own. Either way, I'm okay with it. The fact that we're just getting vectors to final will be great.
American 626, we had our contact, say altitude.
My throat is slowly drying out here.
626, maintain 16,000.
Slowly running out of talk anymore, so it's a good thing we're almost at our destination here. That stream really seemed like it went really fast, but when I get a couple,
2422,
when I get a couple of good raids going, it's very easy for it to last, very easy for it to go.
2455.
And thank you, Microsoft and Asobo, for providing that first rant, because that was all brought to you by Microsoft and Asobo and their broken update processes. But I think I probably ranted about that for 30 to 45 minutes, maybe more. Congrats, by mentioning the NOTAM, you might have automatically earned ATC the whole way down. You know, and I didn't even think about that, but you're probably right, at least to a degree. Definitely got a few respect points for that, I'm sure, for mentioning that. Not that I was specifically going for it. I just like, you know, I like using the NOTAMs because I think it adds an extra dimension. Now, when people are new and they're just trying to get into flying at all, I totally get it. Don't worry about the NOTAMs, but for people who then have more experience as controllers or as pilots, the added complexity of complying with the NOTAM, it just makes life more interesting. It gives you something more you've got to think about, something more you've got to deal with. That's 3,500 descending 3,000, so we got level a little faster than I expected, but that's okay. And we are still...
JetBlue 1652, turn right heading 340 on the rollout. The field will be 12 till 1 o'clock at 15 miles. Report to site.
Right turn 340, we'll let you know when we hit the field. JetBlue 1652. Alright, so there's heading 340. We're going to get the speed back.
American 1204. Good afternoon, we are in the descent to flight level 320 for the XX.
30 for now, so at least we're approaching the flat
United
speed.
261, I see you joined the localizer. That's fine. You cleared ILS runway 8 right approach. Wind 03012, gust 18, runway 8 right, cleared to land.
Shower just out there in the distance, just west of the field.
United 261, runway 8 right, cleared to land.
I think we'll be able to do this, though.
Going right to land, United 261.
American 1204, Miami Center, hello. I don't see a star in your flight plan. Do you have one programmed?
Alright, that's definitely the airport up there.
Arrival for American 1204.
American 1204, that's great. Descending to the Sandbar 3 arrival. Miami landing east, Miami altimeter is 29904.
Alright, descend via the Sandbar 3 and altimeter 29904, American 1204.
JetBlue 1652, field in sight.
JetBlue 1652, cleared visual approach, runway 1 left.
Cleared visual approach, 1 left, JetBlue 1652, thanks. Alright, so we've got look guys, look blue, there's low start cats, we do autopilot 1 and 2.
Number 24,
let's go ahead and sequence those waypoints.
RNAV sea salt, wind 03012, gust 18, runway 8 left, cleared for takeoff. Traffic, 5 mile final parallel runway.
Glide blue, low blue, nav, there's low start again. Cat 3 single, autopilot 1. There's cat 3 dual, autopilot 1 and 2. Alright, there's definitely a range shower up here.
Portugal 223, descend and maintain 3000.
3000, Portugal 223.
Alright, so there's low. Go flaps 1.
Speed 6. Flaps 1.
JetBlue 1652, the wind 060 at 9er, gust 16, runway 1 left, cleared to land.
Runway 1 left, cleared to land, thanks, JetBlue 1652. Alright, so there's speed 190. Hopefully that wasn't too late to decelerate there. We might not lose enough speed here if I don't get this underway. Glide slope, Mr. Approach altitude 3,000 feet is set. I might need the gear to lose some speed here by the looks of it. Yeah, let's go ahead. Gear down, landing check. Gear down.
Gear down.
2,500.
Radar altimeter alive. Cabin crew, proceed for landing.
Flaps 2.
Speed 6. Flaps 2.
That was Selman 2600, Mr. Approach altitude 3000 set. No change of status, clear status.
Miami Center, American 1204.
She's a little bit heavy. She definitely didn't want to slow down. That's the thing, is usually, most of the time, you need to be very close to getting flaps 2 if you're not already at flaps 2.
In the real world.
There's McDill.
I'm going to be closing down here in just a few minutes, so I probably won't get you in. I've been using the ILS 8 right, but what you're doing on that here is your business.
Roger. Roger. I'll set up for the island.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
You got to be careful with this airplane. You got to get flaps
Air Portugal 223, turn right heading 330,
before you start down the glide slope
maintain
in most
2000.
cases, or at least be slowed up enough to get.
Turn right is 330 and 2000.
Portugal 223. Speed a little bit too long.
American 626, climb and maintain flight level 180.
Flaps full.
Speed 6.
Level 180, American 606.
Number 4 Echo Echo, radar contact.
Landing
say
checklist.
altitude.
November 24 Echo Echo, 3000.
Landing no blue.
Number 4 Echo Echo, thank you. Climb and maintain
Landing no blue.
6000.
6000 for November 24 Echo Echo. Proceed turning now.
Alright. Yeah, I got this range jar rolling across the airport here.
1000.
It's visual to the front, visual to the runway anyways. The other end may not be visual. Oh, you know what we didn't do? Let's set up our gate. We're on final. Autopilot's still on. And the knot is fine. Alright, good. Gate's ready to go. I won't have to even think about GSX again now. It'll all happen automatically for us.
Runway droid right blockaded, you landed 261.
Alright, so landing is assured. Runway is in sight.
261 Roger,
No
join
traffic
November
visible.
to parking today.
Autopilot's coming off. It's a little bit of a gusty wind, so I might be doing things to myself here anyways, but there's Cat 1.
Portugal 223, turn right heading 060, intercept runway 8 right, localizer.
Turn right 060 and intercept runway localizer, Portugal 223.
Definitely a little gusty. Sure, land.
100 above.
November 4 Echo Echo,
Continue.
climb and maintain flight level 260.
Land.
November 24 Echo Echo, flight level 260 for Echo Echo.
100. 50. 40. 30.
Portugal 223, if you go through the localizer, you can turn right heading 120 to intercept.
120. Portugal 223.
What it is about landing this Fenix, it's a horrible plane to land. It doesn't land anything like the real 320. What it is with the Fenix.
50 knots.
Manual braking.
JetBlue 1652, welcome to Tampa, right turn, where do you park?
JetBlue 1652, we're going over to gate Alpha 11, please.
JetBlue 1652, roger, make the right turn on to Victor Juliet Lima to the Alpha airside. Have a good one.
Alright, right turn on Victor Juliet Lima to the airside. Thanks for the service. JetBlue 1652.
Tampa, hello. Sorry,
Is Victor the in or the outer? That's the only thing I don't know.
170 to 8,000 feet for preparing for the
Looks like Victor is the inner. Okay, Victor Juliet.
Air Portugal 223, confirm you're established on the localizer. I'll show you
Alright,
offset
perfect. So I know where we're going.
We are not established on ILS.
It's a horrible landing, and I can't land the 320.
I'm sorry, Air Portugal 223, you
It always just pitches down.
I was actually you for 8 right. You can continue on that heading.
Frustrating.
Just to maintain 1,800,
I can fly the rest of the airplane
cleared
great.
ILS runway 12.
Not landing process.
1,800 ILS 12.
And inbound to Tampa, it was American 3531. I'm going to be closing here in just a second, so you can head on back to Unicom. Sorry about that.
Not a problem, boss. Thank you.
Miami Center, good day.
Right,
Delta
disarm
5,
the spoilers.
or 1510 on the ground at
Turing, gonna do
Miami,
the rest of the
short
stuff.
of holding point 21, ready for taxi.
Delta
flaps retract,
1510
everything
Miami,
else.
hello. I'll issue you the taxi, but I am going to leave here in just a second. Runway 8 right, taxi
There's
via
some
Quebec.
animation here at the Tampa airport.
8 right.
An airport I've been to a handful of times.
We'll see you next time for 1510.
So yeah.
I was not impressed with that. I didn't get into the airport itself, but from the outside, it just looked like a bunch of concrete bunkers.
Yeah.
It's not a very attractive looking
Air
airport.
Portugal 223, you established on the ILS for
I don't know
12
if that's
now?
the case inside, but from the outside, not attractive.
Yes, we are established on
Somehow the
ILS.
stream is like 5
Portugal
FPS. Yeah, I
223.
see that again.
Air
And I don't
Portugal
know why.
223 heavy, runway 12.
I don't know why
clear to
OBS
land
is suddenly doing
1030
this.
Uh,
at 12, gust 18.
I noticed that in the last stream, that it kept slowing down at periods. and I honestly don't know how to get it to speed back up.
Central Aircraft Miami Center is now closing. If you hear this transmission, you can go to 122.8. Have a good one, everybody.
Figure out if I can figure out what is.
Thank you for your ATC. Good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for your help, sir.
Because yeah, I've noticed that in the past too, and now it seems to be going a little bit better. But it seems to get into these spurts where it's like, yeah, like it's 5 frames per second for a while, and I don't know what's doing it. Because it's definitely not my software. The sim is running at a very stable these days. What they call save on the sim is it has got to a very stable point. But yeah, the OBS when it streams has gotten very intermittent, and it works most of the time, but then other times it'll just suddenly grind to a halt, and I don't know why, and I don't know how to fix that, to be honest. I would like to try and figure it out. I may have to do some research into it, because I noticed that on the last stream that it was definitely slower than I thought it normally runs at, and it looks like it's becoming more and more of a problem. I wonder if it could be that my video card's finally running out. I was kind of, you know, hoping to replace it by now. I really haven't pulled together enough cash to be able to do that yet. That being said, that the price of video cards is also dropping quite substantially. I can get, I was looking at it, and if you're not too concerned over how much memory, you can get like a 3060 or 4060 for well under $1,000 now. Even for like $800, you can get like a 3060 or even a 4060. So I feel like it's a good time to try and upgrade. I just have not been able to muster more than a couple $100 worth of cash. I'm still several $100 shy on the upgrade price. So I'm hoping that maybe that's part of it. That it's just the video card is being taxed. That it's favoring the sim over my streaming software, which is a good thing at the end of the day. Because my GPU is always running at like 97, 98, 100%. I wonder if it would go better if I even switched to software encoding. Because right now it is hardware encoding with the GPU. I wonder if even switching to software encoding would aid the performance, just because the GPU is being maxed out by the sim. It seems to prioritize the sim. It seems to do a very nice job with the sim. It's very smooth most of the time, but then it's when there is a problem, when there is a shortage of performance capabilities, it seems to be the stream that takes the hit, which is not a bad thing, because at least I can still fly, but it sucks for you guys watching. It looks like crap to you guys. And does anyone know how to fix these stupid tiles that are missing everywhere? Because this is becoming more and more of a problem in the last month or two. Missing tiles everywhere at almost every airport I go to. This is a fresh, brand new install. I only just downloaded and installed the scenery, and there's all these missing tiles in there. And I think it's a loading problem. I don't think it's a question they're actually missing, but just for whatever reason the sim doesn't load them fast enough and then gives up on it, even trying to load them. All right, there's the marshaller. After landing checklist. After landing checklist.
Radar input, activate gesture string.
Off.
After landing checklist complete.
Alright, so I looked away for a second and that was a horrible lineup, but we're going to get in there.
Shit.
Trucks are behind the red lines. I do like the scenery though. Like the scenery actually looks pretty good because you can see there's something in the terminal. It's not just an opaque building, but there's something in there. And even just the hint that there's something in there is always a nice thing. Why is there two marshallers? Competing marshallers. Who do I listen to? Who do I obey? That's hilarious. I think one of them is MSFS and one of them is GSX. Alright, seatbelts off. Engine off. Tend to like to leave a gap on the engines because the power switch on these airplanes is so clunky. I don't like to switch off the second engine until the first one has clunked. Alright, and then we can go ahead and go beacon off. And as you'll see, this now automatically deploys the jetway. And we'll start the deboard against the jetway deploys without me doing anything. All I have to do is say Parking checklist.
Parking brake or chucks.
Oh no! Where's it going? Oh, that's weird. Because it's always worked for me each time so far. Well, let's see if we can toggle this one more time. Here I am, all proud and talking about it, and it didn't work. Say again?
Parking brake or chucks.
Set.
Engines.
Off.
Wing lights.
Off.
Fuel pumps.
Off.
Parking checklist complete.
I almost couldn't understand what he was saying there. That was a little bit weird. He was very, I don't know, the verbiage he was using didn't sound right. Alright, anyways, we made it here. Horrible landing as always. Frame rate seems to have gotten, it's about the same now as I'm looking over at it. It's also still pretty bad. I don't know what it is that's doing it. I really don't. And I think it has to do with the video card because it looks like I am capturing just fine. Like if I move my head around, I am being recorded pretty continuously, but it looks like it's the video capture from the screen to OBS that seems to be the problem. So it's not OBS itself, but I think it's how the video capture is working, how the game display is working. I'm not sure if there's anything I can really fix with that. Because I have it capturing my entire monitor on this side, and that seems to be where the problem is. Because for me, it seems like the movement of my head that's superposed on this seems to be completely smooth no matter what I do. It seems to be it's just the screen as being captured by OBS. So try that. So what I've done is I have tried to change the method, the capture method here, to see if that has any kind of impact. It still is lagging a little bit. It's not great. It's not terrible. And I mean, it is a lot of information to process and suddenly change direction. So I'm not trying. I am trying to kind of really max it out as an example. But see, and that's what I was thinking too. Is maybe it has something to do with train level of detail. I was thinking the same thing as well. It's very funny that like it was never an issue at any airport, and now tons of airports, not just new airports I've recently added, but also airports that I've had for a long time. Flight Tampa Toronto is actually doing it a fair bit, where there's individual small tiles that are not loading, and it seems to be random. It's not the same one every time, so it's some kind of a loading caching issue, I think. I'm not really sure what it is. It's a little frustrating to deal with. I'm not sure what it is. I keep seeing these missing tiles everywhere. They're just this undetailed basic tile. There's obviously like a more detailed tile that's just missing and not being loaded properly. I'm just going to go ahead and turn down that background noise while I continue talking. But anyways, we made it. That was the important thing. We made it. I don't think I have it set to anything like that, but I find like, yeah, maybe I'll try experimenting with higher settings. But we made it anyway, so let's go ahead and submit our flight. We're going to go get paid for this flight, and we're going to prepare for our next flight. Not today, because I definitely don't have time today, but for the next mission, maybe later this week. If not this week, then next week. We'll be doing a flight from Tampa back up to New York's LaGuardia Airport. So this one's even shorter, 879 miles. This one should only take us about 2 hours. About 2 hours of flying time, a little bit more than that. After that, it's a long slog out to Denver. Denver's pretty far from New York. But we're going to do a Denver turn, a New Orleans turn, and then back to Tampa again to end off our season. So we do have still quite a few legs to go. It's going to be quite fun. Hopefully we'll get some more ATC. I'm so pleased and happy that we had ATC online for this arrival into Miami, because I was honestly not expecting too much. It being a weekday morning, but it seems to be... but it was definitely very pleasant, even though he just stuck around for our arrival, but he got us on the ground, which was pleasant. And I think you might be right. I think I may have bought myself that arrival with chatting with him briefly about the NOTAMs. And it was not even, I didn't even think about that, in all honesty. I just was, sympathetic and just sort of, explaining like, hey, I try to fly with him when I can, but I totally get that you sometimes don't have the opportunity. When you're working a whole center, you have literally dozens of airports at your, dozens of airports within your purview. So to check the NOTAMs at all of them can be very tedious sometimes. So So you do see like these the catering truck, like half the catering trucks disappeared there in the distance. I think I do have level of detail issues in this sim. So anyways, I'm going to play with that a little bit, but I'm going to bid you guys a fond farewell. Thank you so much for watching. It's a pity that the failures were not more interesting. It's a pity that it's a pity a lot of things. I mean, it's a pity that we didn't nail that landing, and I don't know what it is with this airplane. I don't know if it's just, maybe it's just the way this yoke translates. I find that because of the dead spot in my my honeycomb yoke, or not my honeycomb, but my it's a Logitech yoke still, but the dead spot in it is quite large. So I find like I do need to pull off. In the real airplane, like the controls are very sensitive. You don't have to. You just move that side stick just a little bit, and it reacts. In the sim, I find I do have to kind of over control the 320 a bit just to get a reaction. Just to get a reaction out of it. So maybe that has something to do with why I can't land this silly sim, but I find it very challenging to try and land. It does not want to land nicely. So anywho, yeah, they are done offloading, I guess, for today. They're going to bash into everything else. I think I'm going to have to turn this off before too much more clipping happens. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Stick with me for next time. We'll definitely do this again sometime very soon. We'll do that leg up to LaGuardia. It should be not too long, and we'll try and find a day that works. Maybe even the fact that it's a shorter flight, only 2 hours, maybe we can even squeeze it into an evening at some point. I don't want to make any promises. I will see what I can do, because if we can do that, then hopefully I can get a lot of you guys to even fly with me. We can have a nice big group flight from Tampa up to LaGuardia. So I will see what I can do about that. I make no promises because I've got all sorts of stuff to do later this week, but we will certainly see what we can do. Keep an eye on the Discord, and I will post a tentative time if and when I come up with one. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys all on the next stream.